19-year-old babysitter Cynthia Bell is suing Lisa Costa and her fiancé Joseph Dudenhofer for unpaid wages and for firing her while on a European vacation.
Order. All rise. Yes, case number 432 on the calendar in the matter of Bell versus Costa Dudenhofer. Parties have been sworn in. You may be seated. Folks, have a seat.
Miss Bell, you were hired as a nanny by the defendants to take care of their 2-year-old little boy while they were vacationing in Europe. You were to accompany them. You left on the 13th of July, and shortly thereafter, it is your claim that you were fired. While in Europe, you want the first week of salary, which was agreed on, it's $400.
Yes, Your Honor.
And you want the cost of changing your airline ticket because you left early.
Yes.
The defendants, they say that you were an awful nanny, that they really had problems trusting you with the child, but that they didn't fire you, that you quit on your own, and if you quit on your own, you absorb the cost of going home, and they're counterclaiming for the cost of getting a new nanny. Really?
Yes, Your Honor.
That's not happening. That's ridiculous.
It wasn't the cost of the new nanny, Your Honor. It was the cost incurred for all the expenses that we spent for the change fees for plane tickets and all the other stuff that we had to fly someone in.
That's ridiculous.
Okay.
What I don't understand in this whole thing is if you have somebody that you claim was inappropriate, and how was she inappropriate?
Several reasons. First, when we first got on the airplane, she couldn't take care of my son whatsoever.
Your Honor.
On our first trip going over from New York to Rome, she wasn't able to take care of my son on the flight, and I had to sit with my son, and she sat with my husband on the plane all the way over to Europe.
And?
So that's when it started.
Go ahead.
So I took care of him. Then when we got to Rome, we got into our hotel, checked into our hotel. We had adjoining suites. She took my son down to the butterfly farm so Joe and I could have breakfast in our room and have room service. She went down for a couple hours, came back. My son was completely sunburned. He had a heat stroke and was vomiting. When we went on from Rome I didn't want to leave her alone at all with our son. So then the next day, she went to the Vatican by herself and did not, because I didn't want to leave her with my son. So we went to the villa from there, and she shook my son. The next day, she took off and said she wanted to have Sundays off so she could go to church. She went down to the beach and drank with other people that were at the beach and came home that day and said, I quit. I can't do this job, cried. And then from there, we called her parents. I said, you can't quit. We're not even 1 week into our vacation. And
you can't quit. You just told me all these reasons that she was incapable of caring for your child and placed him at risk. And what do you mean you said to her you can't quit?
Well, because we were there for 5 weeks, and we
Take care of him yourself.
Well,
I mean, what did you have him for?
Well,
huh?
Well, obviously we had to take care of him ourselves.
We did.
Just a second. Absolutely. You don't leave your 2-year-old with somebody who you believe, and I'm not making a judgment whether she's incapable or not.
Right.
But what I don't understand that, I mean, she's a kid. You're not. I'm going to get to her in a second and find out what nanny training she had. And I don't want to hear about taking care of your sister.
We hired her, Your Honor, to come over there and to perform duties as a nanny. And
she wasn't
incapable.
a good nanny. That's why when
Yes.
your son gets a little older, you'll put him in nursery school. And if you find that they're not taking care of him in nursery school, or if they're not changing his diaper, or if they're not giving him food, or if he keeps getting sick, or if one of the other children isn't supervised and hurts him, then you'll take him out of that nursery school. And you don't sue the nursery school for the cost of another nursery school, because that's ridiculous. You're the parents. Somebody is not taking care of your child in what you believe is an appropriate manner. You find another caregiver. You don't say, well, we're in Europe now and we're here to have a good time, so we'll let her continue to take care of him. You say, here's your plane ticket, go home.
Well,
it didn't work out.
Right.
Here's your plane ticket, go home. It didn't work out. That's what you do. And then you go about either taking care of your child. How many children do you have?
Just one.
Ah, well, perfect. It's not as if it's cheaper by the dozen. I assume you had one child at your stage in life because you thought you were equipped to take care of one child. Is that right?
That's correct.
Then take care of him.
We provide good care for him.
You
At least
didn't.
We thought we
You
did.
didn't. That's what she says.
Right,
You
well,
weren't providing good care. So if you weren't providing good care, and if you found that the care was inadequate, then what you do is you say, thank you very much. This isn't working out. Here's your plane ticket. Go home.
She had a plane ticket, Your Honor. She had a round-trip first-class airline ticket.
Did she have to pay more to change the date?
Yes, Your Honor. Sorry.
I'm not asking. I'm not on you yet. She had to get home. What was she supposed to do? Stay in Europe until you were ready to leave in a hotel?
No.
What was she supposed to do?
She had her round-trip airfare, her ticket, and then we also paid for her train to the airport and talked with her parents. Her parents wanted her to stay, and then we decided that it wasn't working out the next day. So we gave her a train ticket to straight from...
She can't get home from Rome by train.
Right. She had a round-trip ticket, though.
Could she use the round-trip ticket, is the question. Don't look up over here. When you change a ticket, there's usually a fee involved.
Correct.
That's what I'm saying. What do you think? You're going to outfox me?
No. I'm just saying that I didn't feel I had to pay for it because she quit on us. So.
And I'm telling you, you should have fired her based on what you just told me.
Understood.
And say, I will pay for whatever it costs to get you home.
Well, she told us that she would reimburse us for all the expenses we incurred to bring her over there and put her up, and because she couldn't perform the duties that she said she could do.
Get over it.
I am over it.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
She has 7 years babysitting experience.
Not nanny, babysitting.
She told us she could handle the job as a nanny.
You waited a long time to have this baby?
Yeah.
Waited a long time to have a family? Maybe you should have waited a little further.
And later today,
Tell me when you took the money out of his piggy bank.
I needed some cash. I figured I pay child support. It's my money anyway, so I took it.
You're an idiot.
Maybe.
Not not maybe. Not maybe.
real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Babysitter Cynthia Bell says former employers Lisa Costa and Joseph Dudenhofer fired her while she was working for them overseas. The defendants are countersuing for her trip expenses.
Now, how old are you?
I'm 19.
When was the last time you had a full-time job?
Never. I'm a student.
Never?
Yeah.
So you have a 19-year-old who has never held a full-time job. When was the last time you held a part-time job?
Spring 2009. I go to school at Seton Hall University.
Just tell me what you did.
Oh, I was work study. It was so I worked at Seton Hall University in the history department, part-time.
I'm not counting that. Tell me when you had a real job.
Oh, okay, well, before I went to college, I worked at Starbucks.
All part of a resume that doesn't suggest to me any history in childcare. Being a barista, is that what they call it at Starbucks?
Yes.
Is that good? Being a barista at Starbucks doesn't prepare her to take care of your child.
Right.
Work study at Seton Hall University doesn't prepare her to take care of your 2-year-old. The only thing is, she's a warm body. And maybe she has some cousins that she takes care of. Period.
Your Honor. Sorry.
Did you take a course in being a nanny?
No, ma'am.
No. And you never were a full-time nanny before?
No, ma'am.
She had no experience whatsoever.
And she misrepresented herself because she created a flyer that says that she has all of that and 7 years experience.
As a babysitter?
As a babysitter, Your Honor.
I'm sure she babysat.
On my flyer, it says that I'm looking for, if anyone's looking for a babysitter this summer.
Can I see it?
I have an
Is it the same flyer
yeah,
that you
I have an 8-year-old sister, so that's why I babysit.
I don't care whether you babysat for your sister. I told you, I'm not interested in your sister. She has 7 years babysitting experience.
Not nanny, babysitting.
Babysitting.
She told us she could handle the job as a nanny.
You waited a long time to have this baby?
Yeah.
Waited a long time to have a family? Maybe you should have waited a little further. I mean, are you not understanding what I'm saying to you?
No, we understand.
Are you
clearly.
understanding what I'm saying to you?
Yes.
Yeah.
If somebody isn't taking care of your child appropriately and she has absolutely no training to take care of your child independent of you, you took a chance, it didn't work out. Now, did you try to turn in your first-class ticket for a coach ticket on the way home? Is not an answer.
No, yes.
Well, then you should have.
Yes, no, I did. I flew coach back, I'm sorry.
Okay.
My dad was the one who was doing it on the other line because I didn't have internet access.
Fine. Now, when you flew back coach, what did you do with your first-class return flight ticket?
All I know is that my dad paid for the change ticket, and what happened was because they were conversing on the phone.
Just a second.
Oh.
Mr. Bell,
Yes.
she had a round-trip first-class ticket.
Yes.
What happened with her return ticket?
I called on the phone to Continental Airlines, and we went through the program about what it was going to take the first-class ticket departing from Barcelona 4 weeks hence to a coach ticket leaving tomorrow from Rome. And it was $1,000. And so I paid the $1,000, and her ticket was waiting for her at the counter.
Fine. How many days were you in Europe?
I started on Tuesday, July 14th, and I left on Thursday, July 23rd, but I physically left them on the 22nd of July.
Okay. So they owe you for a week. Did they pay you?
No.
Okay. So they owe you $1,000 for the ticket and $400 for 1 week. $1,400. That's what they owe you. Didn't work out. That's what you owe her. And your counterclaims for the new nanny and the new nanny's expenses is dismissed. And I suggest you be more careful next time.
Your Honor, may I speak on their behalf?
No. Goodbye.
Please excuse. You may step out.
I think it's fair.
It was a blatant lie. They fired me, and obviously when they said it was fair, they believed it because they knew they were wrong and they were lying.
Well, it is what it is, and the fruit doesn't fall that far from the tree.
They're lousy parents, and I feel sorry for their son.
You just got to be really careful of who you pick.
These people are crazy.
Next time we'll be a lot more safe.
I'm young and I'm going to learn. I'm going to live. It's no big deal.
And now the next case.
All parties in the matter of Smith versus Allgaier. Step forward, please.
Amber Smith is suing her ex-husband, Austin Allgaier, for a cell phone bill, damaging property, and for stealing money from their son's piggy bank.
Miss Smith, this used to be your husband. You have a child together, a boy.
We do.
It is your claim that subsequent to the divorce, he owes you some money. He owes you some money for a cell phone bill. He owes you some money because he took money out of your son's piggy bank. And he stepped on your present fiance's.
Our family's PS3 controller.
There are a couple of things that I will probably agree with you on. Pronounce your last name for me.
Allgaier.
Mr. Allgaier. One of them is probably the cell phone bill, although I'll hear a little bit of that. But I really, really have a problem with the piggy bank, sir.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
What do you put it on the floor for? That makes sense to you, Bird? Take it and put it on the floor?
That's what I said. Why would it be on the floor? I mean,
Not speaking to you. You're an idiot. I don't speak to idiots.
That's all right.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Amber Smith says ex-husband Austin Allgaier owes for a cell phone bill, purposely damaging her property, and for stealing money from their son's piggy bank.
Okay, let's start with the cell phone bill. You were divorced in what month and year?
We were divorced in March of 2009.
Good. And when did you have this cell phone plan?
We opened the cell phone plan in the summer of 2004, Your Honor.
So in March of 2009, the same plan existed in 2004?
Correct, although 2 lines had been added to it, one for our son and one for my fiance.
Now, in March of 2009, did you have attorneys representing you in the divorce?
I did, Your Honor.
Then the attorney would have said to you, any and all debt, any and all things that exist today are going to be resolved. After this, we start fresh.
Correct, Your Honor.
So you explain to me why you think that the cell phone bill that you allowed him to maintain on your plan shouldn't be covered by that judgment of divorce, which should have resolved all financial issues between you as of March 2009.
First of all, the cell phone bill, we were under a contractual obligation with the cell phone company.
Who's we?
For a certain amount. Well, I was under.
Right, well, that's a debt.
Yeah.
Debts are listed in your judgment of divorce. And the judge at the time of the judgment of divorce would have fixed a responsibility for that cell phone and said, listen, I'm going to take the $200 disconnect fee for your line and give her credit for that because she's going to ultimately be responsible for it, and I would have disconnected him. Do you understand?
I understand completely, Your Honor. The cell phone line was only left open as a means for the defendant to contact our son.
That's your choice.
We had a verbal agreement after the divorce that he would continue to pay. He paid pretty much regularly until August of 2009, around the time that I had a new baby, and then the payments stopped coming.
So you should have taken him off the cell phone plan.
To take him off the cell phone plan would have been another $200.
Right, and then you would have been finished. Listen to me.
Okay.
How much did it cost you to take him off the plan?
It would cost me...
Not would cost. How much did it cost you?
I've not paid yet to take him off the plan.
Then you're a little premature. All right, now, that's what I thought. Take him off. If it costs you $200, it costs you $200, or it might cost you nothing. When is your plan up? You started in 2004. It's 2009. I mean, is this cradle-to-grave coverage?
Well, we kept renewing his line. We kept renewing his line. He was...
Well, you shouldn't have renewed it.
The only reason I renewed it, Your Honor, was to keep an open line between...
I don't care.
Okay.
That's between you,
I just wanted the child to have a way to...
And if you wanted it, then you pay for it. Perfect. Piggy bank. Your son had a piggy bank with money in it. How old is your son?
He's 7.
Tell me when you took the money out of his piggy bank.
I don't remember what day it was. I needed some cash. I figured I pay child support. It's my money anyway, so I took it.
You're an idiot.
Maybe.
Not maybe. Not maybe.
Judge Judy continues in a moment. Are you in a family dispute? Go to judgejudy.com or call 1-888-800-JUDY.
Now, how much did you take out of the piggy bank?
I don't know. It's like $50 or something like that.
$50 at least in cash.
Okay. Now you want to tell me about this remote that he stepped on?
He came Christmas Eve, and we discussed the money about the cell phone bill. And he became aggravated and irate, and my fiance... Josh, not happy at the way he was speaking to me, stepped out to avoid confrontation. He set our PS3 controller down on the floor, and...
What'd you put it on the floor for? What'd you put it on the floor for, Josh?
Your Honor, I wanted to remove myself as quickly from the situation as possible.
You mean there's no furniture in the room?
We have a couch, that's it.
Couch? So why don't you put it on the couch? What do you put it on the floor for? That makes sense to you, Bird? Take it and put it on the floor?
That's what I said. Why would it be on the floor? I mean,
not speaking to you. You're an idiot. I don't speak to idiots. Why would you, if you're leaving the premises, first of all, it's very chivalrous of you. He's screaming and cursing at your fiancé, and you decide to take it outside. But why would you take that and put it on the floor?
It's just the quickest place to put it down, to get out of the way before I got involved. And
okay, fine. Now sit. Go ahead. Keep going. So
he walked over to where the cell phone controller was, and he stomped on it.
No way.
He stomped on it.
No, you didn't. No, he didn't. He may have stepped on it, but he didn't stomp on it.
Well, he stepped on it.
He stepped on it?
Yes,
Shouldn't have been on the floor.
Thank you. See? Told you. Clean up your house.
But it was purpose.
Just a second. Do you take drugs, sir?
No.
Do you take pills?
No.
So my question is, why would someone who looks relatively normal, put himself in a position where he looks like a fool in front of a whole bunch of people? Why? I mean, I don't understand why.
Makes no difference to me.
What?
No, I'm unemployed right now. I do odd jobs here and there, but...
Who do you live with?
I live with my mom right now.
Got it. You owe her $50. Judgment for the plaintiff, that's all.
Your Honor,
that's it. That's it.
There is another incident, though, involving the door.
That's it.
Okay.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
Case.
Parties on Flubacher versus 5. Step forward, please.
20-year-old student Renata Flubacher says she bailed 19-year-old Courtney Fye's boyfriend out of jail twice and has not been paid back.
The defendant was a friend of yours, according to your complaint. She had some trouble with her mate.
Mm-hmm. Correct.
Some domestic violence, is that right?
Mm-hmm.
You had him arrested?
Yes, I did.
And then you thought better of it?
Yes.
So you called your friend and asked her to bail him out of jail?
Yes.
And what did you say?
I was unsure of it at first. I didn't know the procedures of what the law meant and what exactly. At first, it was just that she needed to borrow the money, and then it ended up she needed a co-signer, which was a lot more because I didn't know the gentleman. And, of course, what I knew of him was all negative because what
You mean
had happened.
the gentleman that she lives with?
Well, her boyfriend,
Her
yes.
boyfriend.
Mm-hmm.
So how much did you spend the first time to bail him out of jail?
I think it was $325 after all the court fines.
And you borrowed that money from her?
Yes.
You promised to pay her back?
Yes, I did.
And you haven't?
No, I haven't had a chance.
How long ago was this?
It was in May, I think.
Now then he got himself arrested Again.
Right. He got on probation and then was arrested for the same thing pretty much, from what my understanding is. Not on her, but on somebody else.
He sounds like a real charmer.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
She was my best friend, and we don't talk anymore.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Renata Flubacher says she bailed Courtney Fi's boyfriend out of jail twice and is suing Courtney to get the money back. Courtney feels it's her boyfriend's debt.
What was he arrested for the second time?
Assault.
On whom?
Some guy. I don't know. Some guy he fought with.
And what happened?
He had called me from jail and was crying and telling me that he respected me, and that one of the main problems with Courtney and I was that he wouldn't let me see Courtney. He said that my friendship with her, that I had bad influences.
This is Courtney?
On her. Yes. That I had bad influences on her. I've known her since 6th grade, and he pretty much told Courtney who she could and could not see, and he pretty much was just apologizing and saying that, you know, if I got him out again, that things would be different and that she could see me. Because when I got him out the first time, I pretty much didn't speak to Courtney again. You know, I didn't hear from her. She was at his house. I would call there. He would get upset with her, yell at her, tell her, you need to tell that girl to quit calling here.
You mean this is after
I bailed him out of jail.
After you bailed him out.
So he pretty much just begged me, and then he started saying some things about if his probation officer found out that he had violated his probation, he would go to jail for 6 years. And he was like, I'm going to go to jail, and I'm going to go to jail for something I don't deserve, and something like that. So I called Courtney, and I was like, you know, Courtney, is this true? And from what she understood, it was all true. And I was like, what do you want me to do? Do you have another way to get him out? You know, do you need the money? She was like, yeah, I need the money, and I can't live without him, and I need him to be out of jail. And
did you say that to her?
I did say that.
You couldn't live without him?
Well, I did love him very much.
Sounds like a manipulative sucker.
Yeah. Well, at first he wasn't like that, but...
So how much did it cost you the second time?
It was $325 again. And this time with a lot more writing his, because I had to co-sign also again, because neither one of them know anybody who has any type of liability, and it was a lot more money this time if he didn't end up going back to court.
Did he go back to court?
No, he didn't. I ended up having to call bounty hunters on him to pick him up. He was supposed to go to court, and Courtney and him got in a really big fight within a week or something. Something blew up, and he was staying at his other girlfriend's house, and we had to call the cops, and we had to do all this stuff. And the bounty hunters came and picked him up and had to take him to court, and then he got put back in jail.
So how much did the whole exercise cost you?
It was a little over $900.
All right, Courtney, let me hear your defense to this.
Well, I believe that I owe her for bailing him out the first time, but I didn't ask her to bail him out the second time. And he's the one that asked her, so I think that she should be suing him for the rest.
Well, she did, in fact, call you after she got this jailhouse call.
Yes, and I told her if she wanted to do it, that I would like her to do it, but I wasn't asking her to do it.
You said, I'm not asking you to do it, or did you say, I love him and I can't live without him?
Yeah, I said that, but I'm not asking you to bail him out.
She did say that, too. She's like, well, I'm not asking you, I'm just... She said something like, I'm not asking you because I know you've already done this once, and I know I already owe you money, but I love him so much, and I can't live without him, you know? And I was just like, okay, so do you want me to leave him in jail, or do you want me to get him out of jail? You know, this is up to you. And I told her straight out, I was like, you owe me this money. I can't stand it. I don't like what he does to you. I don't like the way he treats you. I don't like the way he treats me as somebody who's helping him. And
did you say that to her when you spoke to her on the phone?
Yes, I did. And we went together to the Bonds place, and I was like, Courtney, this is a lot of money. I was like, I've worked so hard for all this money. And
what kind of work do you do?
I'm a waitress and a full-time student. And I've been saving all my life. I was like, this is my savings, and, you know, you will pay me back this money.
When did Prince Charming finally leave the picture?
About a month ago.
Under what circumstances?
I just couldn't take it anymore.
And he's going back to
jail. And he's actually wanted again. And I'm trying to help his aunt out because she's going to have to put up $14,000 if he doesn't turn himself in. So I'm helping her.
You mean he got somebody else to put up bail for him?
Oh yeah, his aunt
and he didn't show up.
And he hasn't showed up, and I'm the only one that he calls, so I'm trying to set him up.
Let me tell you what you should try to do. Change your number.
Yeah.
I mean, talk about losers.
Yeah.
You know, when you hang around with losers, you know what you become?
A loser.
Right.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
I believe the plaintiff when she says she couldn't stand your boyfriend. Sounds to me as if she had good cause. He tried to come between the two of you. He's clearly abusive. He's unreliable. And yet, because of your friendship, she bailed him out of jail. Big mistake. Don't do it again. I'm sure you won't. You know, you're a hardworking gal, and if you have been diligent about saving your money, save it. You know, bailing him out is like taking the money and throwing it down the sewer. But there is no question that I believe that you assured her on both occasions that you would be responsible for this money because she was not relying on the boyfriend to pay her back. She was relying on you to pay her back. Your lawsuit seeks $800. You have to pay her. It's the right thing to do. Okay? Judgment in this case is for the plaintiff in the amount of $800. Thank you.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
Judge Judy continues in a moment. And on the next Judy.
Parties on Van versus Webb. Step forward, please.
Avid rollerblader Norm Van says while skating on the beach, he bumped into Henderson Webb's baby stroller. He's suing because Mr. Webb assaulted him, causing severe dental injuries.
Order. All rise.
Your Honor, this is case number 312 on the calendar in the matter of Van versus Webb. Parties have been sworn in, Judge. You may be seated. Have a seat, ma'am. Sir.
Mr. Van?
Yes, ma'am.
Your complaint alleges that the defendant assaulted you by punching you in the mouth?
Correct.
Something that he acknowledges he did.
Yes, ma'am.
So why don't you tell me how this came about?
Okay. On 4th of July, my brother, his friend, Mr. Rohr, and I were skating northbound on a bicycle path heading towards Manhattan Beach Pier. When we reached the...
Rollerblading?
Yes, rollerblading. And as we reached the 2600 section of the Strand, the Hermosa Beach Police Department were breaking up a party, and so it became very congested, and they rerouted the direction of the people that were on the path heading north to head back south again. So at that time, we complied with the police officers, and we started to head south.
So they were making him make a U-turn?
Exactly.
Okay.
And so it came to a standstill. And so a person behind me had a bicycle, and they accidentally tripped me, and I accidentally fell on top of the Webb's baby stroller. As soon as I fell on top of the...
Okay, so you were walking with your wife.
Correct.
And you had your baby in the stroller.
We had baby in a baby jogger.
What's a baby jogger?
It's like a stroller, a little bit different, designed for really running with the child.
One of those long, pointy things that
Exactly.
I've seen? Okay. So it's got 3 wheels?
Exactly.
Gotcha. Go.
As soon as I fell on top of the baby stroller accidentally, Mr. Webb immediately pulled me off the stroller, and before I had an opportunity to apologize to him, he became belligerent and started yelling and screaming at me and using profanity. And so since he refused to listen to me, I raised my tone of voice to the level of his and said, "What the hell are you talking about? It was an accident," because he even had the audacity to accuse me of deliberately endangering his child. And the whole time that he
Your
was...
Honor.
Could get to you.
You know, during this whole time, he was more interested in...
Don't tell me what he was interested in. Just tell me what he said to you and what you said to him.
Well, I can't recall everything that he said to me. You know, just that he was screaming and yelling and he was using profanity at me. And he deliberately accused me of endangering his child by falling on top of the baby stroller.
Okay.
So after we exchanged words, I then attempted to proceed to leave. And at that point in time, Mrs. Webb then confronted me, and she started to do the same thing to her husband.
Just tell me what she said.
Oh, I can't recall the exact words, Your Honor, so I don't want to guess at it. But she, too, was, you know, yelling, screaming, using profanity against me. And at that point in time, I became upset, and I told her that she was an unreasonable for not allowing me an opportunity to apologize or to look at the situation, that it was accidental, and I had no intentions of hurting their child. So
you didn't say all that. You just called her an unreasonable beep.
Exactly.
Okay.
So at that time, I attempted to leave again, and after I left, Mr. Webb then pursued me and cut me off from leaving. And he attempted to pick a fight with me. He was yelling at me saying that I cannot call his wife a So I wouldn't allow myself to get in an altercation with him because there was no reason. It wasn't for self-defense. In addition to that, there were several police officers behind us. So he then placed his right hand on my chest, on my left side of the chest, attempting to further provoke me to a fight. And I still refused to engage in a fight. So
Your Honor, that's...
So I then warned Mr. Webb several times to remove his hand from my chest. And when he didn't do it immediately, so that's why I had to do it several times. When he finally removed his hand from his chest, as soon as he put his hand down, he then attacked me and punched me in the mouth. Immediately, his hand came down. And that's when I fell backwards, hitting my head on the ground. And when I tried to get back to my feet again, I got onto my knees. Then Mr. Webb then jumped on top of my back. And when a deranged manner was yelling, "You can't call my wife," and he kept on pushing my head towards the ground while he was on top of me. Afterwards, my brother intervened, and then a police officer came by, and when I realized that I was injured from the bleeding...
Where were you bleeding from?
From my lip. My lip became lacerated from the punch, and I then charged Mr. Webb with citizen's arrest and told a police officer who was standing close by of my charge.
Okay. You had some medical bills?
Yes, ma'am.
What were the medical bills?
The medical bills were for the oral surgery, for my tooth to be put a crown put on it, and the actual crown price.
How much?
That came out to excuse me, and also the emergency room bills as well, and that came out to approximately $901. And in addition to that, my one tooth was shattered, another tooth is cracked, and that tooth has not died yet, so the dentist wants to wait until the tooth does die, and so I have an estimate of that, which is $1,275.
Judge Judy will continue in a moment.
Teach children from a very early age to use their words. I say that to toddlers. Use your words, don't use your fists. And you didn't. You didn't because you got hot.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Norm Van says after bumping into Henderson Webb's baby stroller while rollerblading, Mr. Webb assaulted him, causing dental injuries. Mr. Webb claims he hit Norm in self-defense.
All right, Mr. Webb, now let's hear your version of what happened, sir.
Okay. I think that was a very creative version that you just heard.
Mr. Webb, let me hear your version of what happened.
My wife and I left 4th of July midday to walk down the Strand with our daughter Haley in the baby jogger. When we approached the 26th Street intersection, there was a huge crowd that we were just kind of instantly enveloped in. Virtually nobody was moving, maybe at just a very small shuffle, people were going every which direction. I was going northbound on the Strand with the stroller at a little bit of an angle there, when kind of out of my peripheral vision, I saw some movement, and before anything else, I felt a strong hit against me and down on the jogger. And that was Norm Van. I looked down, he was full body, full weight, impacted upon the jogger. I started trying to help him up, and I said something to the nature of, get up, get off, watch where you're going. He was immediately very indignant with me as far as profanities. I learned some that day. He got off on me and said a lot of things in my face about I'm a effing this, don't touch me, it's not my fault, get your hands off of me, etc. But it was one of those things. I was terrified, obviously. My wife was more petrified than I was. At that point, I looked under the baby jogger, has a canopy on it. Haley was crying and bawling. Wasn't really the place to get her out and find out how she was. Stepped back behind the jogger.
But she was fine.
She didn't have any visible damage.
She was fine.
Correct. Stepped back behind the jogger to resume our snail's pace, so to speak. My wife's still behind me when the next thing I heard was him going off on twice the tirade with my wife. And, at a distance of like that from her face. He called her B-I-T-C-H, but that was the nicest word he called her. We all felt threatened, I think. We had no place to go. We were in a very small space. I kind of put my hand between them. I never once touched Norm Van until I actually hit him. I kind of stepped in front of my wife and in front of Norm Van, so that they were behind me. And he continued to be very threatening, very belligerent, indignant, coming at me this way. I thought for sure he was going to attack me. I've got my wife and child behind me, and I did hit him in the mouth. He never hit the ground, number one. He kind of squatted or kneeled. I got behind him and put my arms around him and locked my hands to contain him. I never tried to hit his head on the cement. I did I hit him once, and that's all that happened. Okay? Held him, contained him. He started screaming, "I'm going to sue you, citizen's arrest." I took a few steps back, and then he started coming at me again. And I said to him 3 or 4 times, "Stay away, stay back." I couldn't understand why he was stepping towards me again. He was pointing his finger saying, "I want you to get arrested, you're in trouble," and I said, "Stay away," because I didn't know why he was coming at me again. I thought he could attack me.
What do you mean you didn't know why, sir? You would hit him in the mouth.
Well, I figured he was going to attack me.
You know, what you figured.
Right, I felt threatened by him.
You hit him in the mouth.
Yes, I did.
Mr. Webb, you know, I've walked many a stroller, and I've had footballs come into the stroller, and people, it's other times, you know, throwing a can out of a car that almost misses the stroller by that much. You know, has that ever happened to you, Bert?
Sure, Judge. 4 kids.
Yeah? So you know what you want to do to the person who threw their soda can out of a window that almost hits your baby? You want to kill him. That's the immediate reaction.
I agree, but I think that's a little different circumstances than we faced.
Well, I'm not so sure, Mr. Webb. What I'm talking about is the maternal or paternal instinct when something, anything, threatens your child. The adrenaline starts to pump. And you don't want to hear anything about accident, because those kind of accidents aren't supposed to happen. I mean, when you say to me, "I tried to help him off the carriage."
Absolutely.
Well, you weren't helping him. You were getting him off there as fast as you could so you could check on your baby. You just wanted to get him off. If you could have used a stick of TNT, it wouldn't have made any difference whether he was okay or not. You wanted to get a look and see whether your baby was hurt. Mr. Webb, that's totally understandable, sir.
Well, I was understanding enough to realize once he was up that could be over. That's why I stepped behind the baby jogger again to proceed at whatever pace I could to get away from Mr. Van.
But he didn't hit you, you hit him.
Correct. I hit him because I had no place to go, and he was posing immediate threat to my wife and my child.
No, I don't think so, sir. He was using his words. You lost your temper. You got angry because he said something to your wife, and there's no question in my mind that if I called your wife up here, she would say that she didn't say anything to him. Is that right? Did you say anything to him?
Oh, yeah, I asked him to, you know, just move away and get away from the stroller, because after the confrontation had happened, between my husband and Mr. Van, he didn't just go on his way. He was, I mean, this far away from both of our faces, just telling us that, you know, it's not his fault, and, you know, F this and F that. And
well, let me ask you a question. Did either of you say to him, "I know it was an accident, just that everything's okay now"?
I said, move on. Let's forget about this. It's over. And that's why I tried to go northbound. He was engaging my wife at that time.
Had your wife said anything to him before he was engaging you? Did you say to him, no? I don't necessarily believe that, Miss Webb. I mean, I don't say that because it's not common sense. You're a mother, your baby's in the stroller, I can imagine you broke out in an immediate sweat when you saw this body, this huge body over your baby. And you're trying to tell me, trying to stand there and tell me that you were behaving in a calm...
No, we're not. We were both petrified, as our statements will both say.
Mr. Webb, unfortunately, we don't have candid cameras all around the place so that you can view what your reaction was when he fell on your baby.
Right.
Because what you're suggesting to me is your actions were wholly appropriate and consistent with a very moderate tone and a very moderate reaction to an accident. And I guarantee you, sir, it belies common sense to suggest that you were that kind of calm. And your wife was that kind of calm. Okay. So you hit him. You got to pay for his damage. No question about that.
Judge Judy will continue in a moment.
That's pathetic that you would even lie right here.
No, it's pathetic that you would even lie about lying.
I think it's
That's
pathetic that you didn't protect your brother.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Rollerblader Norm Van says Henderson Webb assaulted him after bumping into his baby stroller. Mr. Webb says he hit him in self-defense.
Now, I want you to look at these things, sir.
Your Honor, can I make one last quick statement?
Sure.
The fact that the police officers did not arrest me or do anything but take a report, combined with the fact that the first communication I got from Mr. Norm Van was via a lawyer named Daniel Lieb, led me to believe that there wasn't a lot of belief from the standpoint of the police officers that this was something they wanted to pursue, and that it was something that Norm Van merely wanted to get money out of from a precarious situation. And that's why I received a letter asking if I had a certain type of insurance to find out how much, coverage or what kind of a plaintiff's win they could get out of this.
Well, Mr. Webb, let me address your first question first, sir. The fact that the police took the information with regard to this case and decided that they weren't going to, at that moment, separate you from your wife and your baby, placing you in handcuffs and taking you off to the pokey, showed good judgment on the part of the police. I mean, they clearly understood that there had been an accident that could have been dangerous, that you overreacted to that, but that didn't rise to the level of somebody who was a dangerous person walking around the street. Certainly, unless somebody else fell on your baby carriage, this wasn't going to happen again. So the police exercised good judgment. They do not necessarily have to arrest everyone. To address your second point, if you got a letter from a lawyer that says, what kind of coverage do you have, because he wants to be reimbursed for whatever his out-of-pocket medical expenses were as a result of you punching him in the mouth, I think that that's wholly appropriate.
Why wouldn't you go to small claims court right off the bat instead of trying to find out how much money he could possibly take advantage of?
Why would he want to do that? People aren't supposed to abuse the court system if they can resolve things without going to court. If they can resolve things without going to court, why would you want to spend a day in court, have to go down there, maybe spend 2 days? Why would you want to do that? That's wholly appropriate, sir. People encourage that. That's why we have mediation services that are blossoming throughout this country to relieve an overburdened court system with cases that really shouldn't be in court. People accepting responsibility for things that they do and saying, all right, I'll pay what I can. I don't find anything inappropriate about that. Now, Mr. Van,
yes, ma'am.
I want you to look at these bills that you've just presented to me, and I want you to tell me exactly what your out-of-pocket expenses were, sir, that were not covered by insurance. Do we understand each other?
Yes, ma'am. That's $901.35.
Okay, because the rest was covered by your insurance.
Correct.
Okay.
In addition to that is the estimate to do the additional work from my other tooth, which is injured but hasn't died yet, which is $1,275.
And that was a result of this incident?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, Mr. Van, see, so far I've given it to these people because I think that Mr. Webb was wrong to punch you in the face. And I believe that what happened with the baby was an accident. Right? You also seem like, the kind of guy who should understand that they were really upset. Do you have children?
No, ma'am.
Well, if you have children, you'll come to understand that something happens to a baby of yours, all of those protective juices start to flow. So the fact that Mrs. Webb, and I do believe she opened up her mouth to you, it was probably not the right thing to do to respond to it the way you did, verbally. You could have just kept walking away from her and just ignored her, because she was hot, because her baby was, for that moment, at risk. Do you understand?
Agreed.
You got to use your noodle.
Judge Judy is ready to rule.
Mr. Webb, you behaved unreasonably because you hit him. You can walk around that every which way, but you behaved wrongly because we teach children from a very early age to use their words. You say that to toddlers. Use your words. Don't use your fists. Don't be physical. Use your words. And you didn't. You didn't because you got hot. And I understand why you got hot, but you got to pay for it. All right? Your total expenses come to about $2,200.
That's correct.
A little bit less, but it's about $2,200. And you're suing the defendant for $3,000.
Yes, ma'am.
I think you're entitled to that. Judgment is for the plaintiff in the amount of $3,000. That's all.
Thank you, ma'am.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
Judge Judy will continue in a moment.
Is on Sullivan versus Smith. Step forward, please.
19-year-old waitress Misty Sullivan is suing her ex-boyfriend Ron Smith for assaulting her during an argument.
Order. All rise. Quiet in the courtroom, please.
Your Honor, this is case number 333 on the calendar in the matter of Sullivan versus Smith. Parties have been sworn in, Judge. You may be seated. Have a seat, sir.
Ms. Sullivan, your complaint alleges that the defendant assaulted you.
Yes.
Over a year ago.
Right.
And you're suing him for the hospital bills.
Right.
So I want you to tell me where he assaulted you, how he assaulted you, and why you waited a year to bring this lawsuit.
Ron and I had known each other about 5 months, or we were together for about 5 months. After 3 months, we moved in together. And probably about 2 months after that, Ron and I had an argument in our apartment, and he asked me to leave, and I told him to go to his friend Jesse's house and that I would be gone by the time he got back. It turned into just an argument, and he picked me up and he threw me out the door into the railing. I walked down the stairs and to the Chevron station where I called the police and my dad. The police came and arrested Ron. Ron and I didn't speak for 2 weeks. After that, we got back together, and Ron agreed to help me pay the hospital bill.
Okay, so you got back together again. Right. And how long were you back together again?
Off and on, probably 7 months.
When you say off and on for 7 months, you mean you lived together?
No.
You didn't stay at his house?
No. After that, my cousin and my grandmother, after I left the hospital, had to go to my apartment and move me out because my knee was sprained, and I had 8 stitches in my face and a slight head concussion. And I moved into my Aunt Anna's house at that time.
So you never again stayed at his house?
No.
But you dated?
Yes.
And then what happened?
It just didn't work out. He agreed to pay half of the hospital bill or help me out with the bills. And when we broke up, I had called him and asked him if he was still going to help me, and he told me, good luck. I'm moving in November to go to the wrestling camp. Okay. So that's when I decided to take him to court.
You made an agreement with him, according to you, that you consented to for him to pay for half of the medical bills.
Right, and he had agreed to it.
Okay. And how much were the medical bills?
It's $1,177 now in a collection.
$1,177.
Right.
That's the whole bill?
Yeah, in collection. The whole bill was $882.
Well, it was $882, and then they built up interest on it.
Right, which is on my name in collection.
Why didn't you pay any part of the bill?
Because I just hadn't done it, and then when I
I know you hadn't done it, but my question is, why hadn't you done it?
I had just figured that Ron put me in the hospital, then he should have to pay for it. Why should I have to go through that and pay for it, too?
Well, I'm just asking. I understand that. But what I'm questioning you about is, if you agreed with him that he would pay half the bill, why didn't you, since you were going to pay the other half, pay the other half instead of stiffing the hospital completely?
I just didn't do it.
Well, that's not very responsible.
It's not.
What kind of work do you do?
I'm a waitress.
Now, you're suing him for a lot more than half of $1,177.
Right.
Why?
I'm suing him $1,200 for the 6 weeks of loss of work.
Why?
Because I missed work because of him.
But you were seeing each other after this incident. I'll get to you in a second.
Yeah, we were.
And even at the time when you separated 7 months later, according to you, you still said to him, what about the half of this hospital bill that you said you were going to pay?
And he didn't want to do it.
So I still don't understand why now you're tacking on a whole lot of other things.
I had changed my mind. I had decided, why should I have to pay for half of it when it wasn't even my fault? He put me in the hospital. He should pay for the whole thing.
But you, according to you, had an oral contract with him to pay for half of the bill.
Basically, yeah.
Okay. Now, Mr. Smith, you want to tell me?
And what it was when we were living together, she was purchasing cocaine. And I have 2 kids. I paid my child support. I only get to see one of them. And I didn't want anything to jeopardize my son being able to come and visit me in my home. And something like that would. I asked her to leave. She refused to leave. I didn't pick her up and throw her out the door. She got hit with the door. She stuck her foot in the door. And then I put my hand on her to get her out the door and close the door behind her. I did not physically pick her up and throw her out the door. I went through my anger management classes, and
you pled guilty to the assault.
I pled no contest.
That's the same as guilty.
Yes. I went through my anger management classes, and like she says, you know, I did agree to pay half of the hospital bill. I did. It was all fine and good until just a little while ago. What it is she calls me up, and when she does call me, she's drunk. And all she wants to do is make up. She's pledging undying love and affection. You know, she wants to be with. She comes to my work drunk. She calls me up drunk, telling me that she loves me. She just wants to be with me. She's never loved anybody like me before, and blah, blah, blah whatsoever. And when I told her, no, I'm sorry, I'm moving, I'm going to Atlanta, she wanted to come to Atlanta with me. After the incident happened, she quit her job so she could move to Minnesota because she was going to be with her mother. It had nothing to do with me at all. That's why she missed that work. She quit her job.
Okay.
I did not make contact with her after the incident. She made contact with me.
Tell me about this argument. The reason that you say that you pushed her out of the house was because of cocaine.
Yes.
Was she, according to you, selling cocaine?
She was buying it.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
Since when do I do drugs?
You don't smoke pot?
No, I don't.
You don't
Do you?
get drunk?
Oh,
you called
okay.
the studio drunk off you.
And later today,
He broke the engagement.
By having this affair?
No, he needed time alone. He needed to find himself.
real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Misty Sullivan says her ex-boyfriend Ron Smith assaulted her during an argument and wants him to pay for her medical bills. Ron doesn't deny he injured Misty, but says they agreed he would pay only half of the bills.
Tell me about this argument.
I tell her, I don't want this in my home. I told her that when she got off the phone. We argued about it. I don't want this in my home. Like I said, my son comes over. So the next day, I go to work, and I come home, and she's on the phone with one of her ex-boyfriends that she's making this cocaine deal with. And I told her right then and there, don't do it in this house. I don't care if you go down to the payphone down the street. Don't do it in here.
And that precipitated this argument?
Yes, ma'am.
Truth to it?
Yes, it does.
Good. So, that's what the argument... Truth to it?
Yes, it does.
Good. So, that's what the argument was about. Well, that... Say nothing. That doesn't excuse the fact, madam, that he put his hands on you.
No.
That doesn't excuse that. That's saying that he has a right to have you out of his house. If you're that dumb, that you would involve the household in a situation where even for a moment there was going to be a drug transaction taking place even on the phone. That still doesn't excuse her, someone of your size, from giving her a shove outside, and she was clearly injured, right?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
All right. So, somebody's got to pay for that. According to what she says, and according to what you seem to acknowledge, that you had agreed to pay for half of the medical bill. Correct?
Yes, ma'am.
That was your agreement?
Yes, ma'am.
Well, you didn't pay and she didn't pay, so the only one that got stiffed so far is the hospital that provided the service. That doesn't sound fair, right?
Right.
So, you have to pay, sir. You have to pay half. I'm going to round it off because I like round numbers. $1,177 we're going to take to $1,200, so the judgment in this case is for the plaintiff in the amount of $600. That's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out. Back to your right.
I think the justice system is the best in the world. Thank you, Judge Judy. I'm sure she'll find something else to give me hell about before I leave. I got like another week or so.
And now the next case.
Parties on Urea versus Snyder. Step forward, please.
21-year-old Christy Urea says she and 24-year-old Christian Snyder were engaged to be married until she caught him cheating. She's suing for credit card bills and wedding expenses.
How old are you?
24.
Young looking. You're lucky.
Thank you.
But not smart. Because according to this complaint, you were engaged to the boss's daughter.
That would be me.
And you had a little tryst with somebody in the office. And then the engagement was over. And she says that you owe her money from all the things that she spent for the wedding and some other credit card bills. And you signed a note. And then she said you didn't pay. Is that what this is about?
Yes, he stopped paying. He had been paying for a while.
Okay, so that's pretty much what this is about. Was he working for your father at the time that you became engaged? Is that how you met him?
No, it's not.
Because this becomes important in this story later. He said he was coerced into signing this note. So who was he working for when you met him?
He was working for an automotive shop somewhere down in Montclair.
As a mechanic?
Yes, I believe so, yeah.
And how long did you know him before he came to work for your father?
Probably a little over a year.
Is that right?
That's about right, yeah.
And what kind of business does your father have?
An automotive repair shop.
So it was the same kind of business?
Yes.
And what were you doing for her father? Working as a mechanic?
Yeah, and also helping run the office.
Do you have any brothers?
Yes, I have a brother.
Does he work in the business?
No.
Do you have any other sisters?
I have a sister, yes.
Does she work in the business?
No.
So there you have a business that could grow into a business that's yours. Did that ever occur to you?
Yeah.
Then you became engaged when?
March of this year.
And you made certain preparations?
Yes, we did.
Like what?
Well, we reserved the chapel to get married. I have wedding invitations that we had made up. I had a dress. My girls got their dresses.
Just stop playing for the look of it. When was this wedding supposed to take place?
August 30th.
And tell me when the engagement was broken.
That's July, beginning of July.
By whom and why?
By him, because he said he needed to find himself, and then I found out he was sleeping with one of the girls from my dad's work.
How did you find that out?
Because his mother called me at midnight and told me, because I guess she'd gone by his mom's house.
The girl had gone by his mom's house? Did you confront him with that?
Yep.
What'd he say?
He tried to talk his way around it, and I went to the girl's house, and his car was there, and he admitted to it. And then he tried to come back to me after that, and then he went back to her, and he played a game for a little while.
Did you tell your father?
Oh, yes.
So you were willing to go through with this wedding, even though you found out that he was fooling around. So
no.
Because you said he broke the engagement.
Yes, he broke the engagement.
By having this affair?
No, well, that's not, that's the reason why, but that's not the reason he gave me.
What was the reason he gave you?
He needed time alone. He needed to find himself.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
Same girlfriend that you were meeting with while you were engaged to her?
At the time, there was nothing going on, but...
Just visiting?
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Christy Urea called off her wedding when she discovered her fiancé, Christian Snyder, was cheating. She's suing for wedding expenses and credit card bills. Christian says he paid Christy's college tuition, making them even.
So then you signed a note, right?
Yes.
It's right here.
Well, show it to him because that'll make it easier. I don't have to show him the copy that I have. That's the note that you signed, sir?
Yes.
Well, tell me about that, because you say you were coerced into signing the note.
I was told that if I signed it, it could be negotiated later, but I needed to sign it so I could get back to work, and I was afraid of losing my job.
Okay, let's start. You were presented with this note. By whom?
By her father.
In the office?
Yes.
You signed it?
Yes. I was afraid I'd lose my job if I didn't sign it, and I needed to pay child support.
So, you had a choice of either signing the note or going to find another job, right?
Yes, let's put it that way.
Did you honestly believe, sir, that her father was going to keep you on the payroll after he found out that you were fooling around with somebody else in his business?
He told me I could.
I got a bridge I want to sell you. You're 24 years old, and you tell me that you have child support that you have to pay.
Yes.
How many children do you have?
One.
How old?
She's going to be 5.
So you were a teenager when you had this child, right?
Yes.
Were you married to the child's mother?
Yes.
Is that your only marriage?
Yes.
So you signed this note for $3,000. Is that what it was?
$3,200, yes.
And according to you, you paid some of it.
Yes.
And she acknowledges that you paid some of it.
I wrote him a receipt every time he made me a payment.
Made you a payment, but money was also deducted from his check at work.
Yes, and my father wrote him receipts. I have those. That's how they started, and I continued writing them.
Let me see the receipts. Well, the last one was in September, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there was a balance due of $2,294.
That's correct.
And you're still suing for $3,000.
Yes.
Explain that to me.
I have a proposal I had done. He kicked holes in my wall and attempted to fix them.
When?
The last month that we were together, when he started acting really bizarre.
Before or after you had him sign this note?
Before.
Forget it. What's next?
The wedding invitations that I had to pay my mother back for.
You had ordered those invitations before this note, correct?
Yes.
Well, look, Miss Urrea, we're not going to reinvent the wheel here.
I understand.
You, at a time, memorialized in writing and had him sign, your father had him sign, what he owed you as of a date certain. He, according to you, made certain payments. These are all the payments that she says she has. And do you get a copy of these receipts?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Do you have any question in your mind that the last receipt indicates that the balance due is $2,294?
I believe that's what it was, yes.
Okay.
I don't have any of the stuff she wants me to pay for. I also paid for her school, which I was never reimbursed for. I figured we'd just make it even.
Well, did you have an agreement with her to pay?
A verbal agreement she was going to pay me back, yes.
Well, explain that to me.
I gave, because her father would pay for school only if she got good grades. So in order to get started, she needed money to go to school, to pay for first semester, and then her father would pick it up from there.
How much did you pay?
I don't exactly know how much it was.
Well, if you Give me another reason why you don't owe this money. The first one I'm shelving. Give me another reason why you don't owe this money. The first one I'm shelving.
The whole time we were together, I was also helping her on her credit cards and stuff like that. Just from the past year, I have almost $2,500 in canceled checks and stuff to her credit cards.
So?
That's not
You both
true.
used her credit cards. You're clutching at straws, Mr. Snyder. You signed a note for $3,200. You're 24 years old. You've been married once, divorced once. You're the father of a child. That's the end of the story. If you had said to me that our father coerced you into signing this note because he took your left ankle and tied it around your right ear, right? And he was torturing you, that's against the law.
Well, you don't know her father. I mean, he has called me, threatening me that he's going to come take it from me and stuff like that.
You mean when you didn't pay?
Yeah.
Well, that's a different story. When you didn't pay, I'm talking about when you signed the note. And according to you, you felt coerced into signing this note because you were afraid to lose your job.
Not only that, her father is extremely intimidating.
What do you mean is extremely intimidating, sir?
He just is. He's very
Like me?
hot-tempered.
Huh?
No, actually, he's more intimidating than you are.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
Listen, you signed the note, you have an obligation to pay it. It's as simple as that. Not smart to fool around like that, Mr. Snyder. You living with anybody now, sir?
Yes.
Who?
My girlfriend?
Same girlfriend that you were
Yes.
meeting with while you were engaged to her?
At the time, there was nothing going on, but...
Just visiting? All right, what's the bottom line here? Judgment is for the plaintiff in the amount of $2,294. Thank you, that's all.
Thank you.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
Judge Judy continues in a moment. And
Schnabel versus Timmons. Step forward, please.
59-year-old insurance broker Phil Schnabel says Steve Timmons broke his car windshield and bent his antenna in a fight over Phil's missing daughter.
All rise.
Judge, this is case number 308 on the calendar in the matter of Schnabel versus Timon. Parties have been sworn in, Judge. You may be seated.
Mr. Schnabel, this lawsuit really has its genesis in a problem with your daughter. Is that right?
That's correct.
From what I gather from these papers, and I try to sift through them because they were kind of difficult to follow, your daughter was in a relationship with a defendant.
That's correct, Your Honor.
Something happened, which you're going to tell me about, and you claim that he damaged your car.
That's correct.
Why don't you tell me how that came about, sir?
Your Honor, it was the evening of June 27th of this year, and I was at home. I lived about 35 miles from the residence that my daughter shared with Steve. It was about 9:30 in the evening. I received a phone call from my daughter saying, "Dad, come get me. I'm at Steve's." And she hung up.
Had she ever done that before, sir?
She had.
How many times?
Once.
How long had she been with him?
8 months, probably. That's a guesstimate.
And how old is she?
32.
Go ahead.
I called back and immediately, and Steve answered the phone, said that she had been drinking, that she was intoxicated, that he had thrown her out of the house, that she had left in her car, and I said, "I'll be right there." I arrived, asked him, "Where is she?" "I don't know, don't care," in effect. Immediately across the street from the duplex that they shared is a large primitive area, probably 80, 100 acres of Douglas fir, undergrowth, nettles, blackberries, a very steep ravine. And at that point, we're standing in the front yard, and I heard her call out, "Help me." And it came from the vicinity, or this primitive area. I took off toward the area, and a neighbor came out because I was calling her name, and by now it's 11 o'clock, 11:15, somewhere in that vicinity. And I was not getting an answer back. I just could hear, "Help me." And they came out, loaned me a flashlight. I tried to get down, but it was just too steep. I went back to the house and engaged Steve in a discussion. We got in an argument. And
well,
I asked him,
tell me about that.
Well, I asked him, I said, "Why didn't you keep her here? If she was intoxicated, why didn't you keep her here?" And he says, "Well, I couldn't control her, and I threw her out. She got in her car. She went down, missed the corner, ran into a neighbor's yard, blew a tire, took out a bunch of their cyclone fence, backed the car out, managed to get it back into the driveway, and then he threw her out again." And with that, obviously, she took off. I said, "You know, you're part of the problem." And with that, he said, "Out of here." And I realized that he didn't care anything. Missed, and he jumped back, and we stood there looking at one another, and finally, for my daughter. And I hit him in the stomach and tried to hit him in the jaw, and for my daughter. And I hit him in the stomach and tried to hit him in the jaw. And I said, "This isn't finding her. I'm leaving." I bent down, picked up my cell phone that had fallen on the ground, walked over to my car, around on the passenger side, opened the door, and in a rage, he came running over to the side of the passenger side of the car, took the heel of his hand, smashed it into the windshield. I said, "Now that's going to cost you." Got into the car, turned the key, and of course the power antenna came up. Well, he's standing right there, so he grabs that, he bends that over. He grabbed the windshield wiper, and he spun that around, and I backed out and left.
Does your daughter have a drinking problem?
She does.
For how long?
To my knowledge, about, probably 5, 6 years, as it turns out. It's been fairly
Before
well
she
hidden.
met Steve?
Yes.
All right, well, there are a lot of questions that I have for you, but I'm going to let Mr. Timmons... Steve.
Yes.
All right, well, there are a lot of questions that I have for you, but I'm going to let Mr. Timmons...
Well, his daughter has a problem drinking, and we've gone through it for a long time and tried on numerous occasions to get her help. I told her if there was another incident with the police that she was going to have to move out. And when it did happen, when she was released into Phil's custody.
You mean there had been an arrest before?
2 weeks before.
Is that right, Mr. Schnabel?
That's correct.
What happened in that incident?
Again, she was at my house drinking, and police got involved and arrested her for that. And that was the last straw.
Judge Judy will continue in a moment.
You decided it wasn't your problem anymore. But you, just as a human being, you don't allow somebody who's intoxicated to go wandering off into the brush where she could have really been killed.
And later today...
You didn't give me the money until Friday.
Till Friday? You got the money way before then.
No, I didn't.
Now,
you know what? I kept a journal of everything.
Well, kept a journal
Miss Landros,
you got the money.
Talk to the judge, please.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Phil Schnabel says his daughter's ex-boyfriend, Steve Timmons, damaged his car during a fistfight. Steve claims Phil's daughter is an alcoholic and caused the incident.
Okay. Tell me what happened with his car. After he assaulted you, where did he hit you?
In the chest and in the head.
That's pretty much what he says. What happened with his car?
I told him after he did that I was going to call the police, and he needed to leave my property. So we walked to his car. He was screaming and yelling. I was screaming and yelling. I hopped in his car, started it up, started revving the engine up, and just sitting there. As I approached his car and told him that he needed to leave and that I was going to call the police, he put it in gear. I pushed up against his car. I don't know why, but didn't know if he was coming after me or my car or what the deal was. He put it in gear.
So the bottom line is, on that evening, gentlemen, you both lost your tempers.
That's correct.
Mr. Schnabel. That you physically put your hands on the defendant first.
I did.
That you physically put your hands on the defendant first.
I did.
Out of anger.
I did.
And yet you're complaining that he, according to you, put his hands on your car out of anger, right?
After I'd indicated that I was leaving.
What difference does it make?
Okay.
I mean, you expect a certain amount of compassion as a result of your being very upset. You assaulted him because you were upset that he hadn't taken better care of your daughter, right?
That's correct.
He didn't sue you for assault.
There was some pushing prior to that, so...
No, there wasn't pushing.
That's correct.
You know, even according to your complaint, there wasn't incidental pushing. You lost your temper. While I'm sympathetic because you clearly have a situation in your family that's tragic, but Mr. Schnabel, I'm unsympathetic, sir, with your lawsuit against the defendant. Unsympathetic for whatever damage he caused to your car, because you expect him to understand your frustration, which resulted in you really assaulting him. I mean, you told me in your papers. You punched him in the stomach, you said you hit him in the head, and yet even if he got so angry because he was assaulted that he smashed the windshield of your car, which was in movement, clearly.
No, Your Honor, I'm sorry.
It was just sitting there? You were sitting in the car?
I wasn't even in the car yet when he smashed the windshield.
You mean you assaulted him and then he went and hit your car?
That's correct.
Instead of hitting you, he hit your car.
It wasn't because he didn't try, Your Honor.
But you hit him first,
That's
Mr.
correct.
Schnabel.
I did.
All I can tell you, sir, is this. Anger is a much easier emotion for people to live with than sorrow or frustration. It's much easier to be angry with somebody else than it is to internalize within your own family situation. He didn't create the situation with your daughter. According to you, it's been going on for a long time, even before she met him. So it's not his fault. I mean, if it were his fault, they would have been together for years and he would have been an enabler with her. But I don't get that sense. I get the sense you've been having difficulty with her for a long time. He got frustrated finally. Mr. Timmon, what you did wasn't the right thing. You understand that, sir?
I do.
There are certain things that you can do to be protective just as a human being. I understand that you were frustrated. I understand that she had a problem. You had a short-term relationship. You decided it wasn't your problem anymore, right? And you wanted clear of it. But you, just as a human being, you really been killed. You would have felt terrible. It's a very unfortunate situation. Really been killed. You would have felt terrible. It's a very unfortunate situation. But Mr. Schnabel, the defendant understood that. I have no countersuit here for assault. He certainly didn't press charges against you for assault, which he could have. The damage to your car was $400. That's what the punch is going to cost you, sir. This case is dismissed. That's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out. Back to your right, please.
And now the next case.
Parties on Landeros versus James. Step forward, please.
24-year-old Marlo Landeros says her former friend, 23-year-old Latasha James, owes her $240 for a cell phone bill.
Miss Landeros, you claim that the defendant owes you $240 for a cell phone bill.
Yes, ma'am.
Tell me how that came about.
Okay, Latasha James, she's a former friend of mine in which I met at our previous employment about 5 months ago. And sometime in August, she purchased a cellular phone. I told her that if she knew somebody with the phone, that she could get it connected so it would be cheaper. In a conversation she had one time, she said that the sales rep at the phone company had told her that if she knew somebody with the phone, that she could get it connected so it would be cheaper for her. We took it.
She had the phone. She had bought the phone.
Yes, she purchased the phone. She gave me her phone to take to my phone company and to activate it under our account so she wouldn't have to prepay for her minutes. In other words, when the bill came in, I would tell her how much it was. It would be cheaper for her. And that's why I was doing this favor for her. And when I did it, I let her know. I said, well, I'm on a one-year contract. I said, they're probably going to put you on a contract also. She gave me $55 just in case of if they did require anything.
Judge Judy will continue in a moment.
The reason that you asked her to co-sign for you is that you wouldn't have to prepay.
Correct.
Of course I'm correct.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Marlo Landeros is suing Latasha James because she didn't pay for a $240 cell phone bill. Latasha claims she owes much less.
Okay, so you went.
Yes.
And you activated her phone.
That's correct.
And how much did it cost you?
I was required to put down a $50 fee for activation fee.
And she had given you $55.
Yes.
So you
I
had
returned the $5 to her.
She returned the $5?
Yes, she did. Okay. When I went to return the phone to her house that night, I went in and it was a pink paper. And I said, "Here's your phone number." I said, "It's, you know," I said, "You."
So she had a phone number and she had her phone.
Yes, and it was working.
Okay. Correct?
Correct.
Good.
The next time I called her was when the first bill was due, and I called where we used to work. She wasn't there. It was a Friday, and I called her on a Friday because we used to get paid every Friday.
So you called her and you said, "Bill due."
Yes. Okay.
How much was the bill? Her
$42. Okay.
Did she give you the $42?
Yes, she did. She paid me after the due date. Yes.
Okay.
Arrived early, so I wanted to notify her early because that bill came to $192.
When was the next bill that came in?
Okay, the next bill came in 2 weeks later because the bill arrived early. So I wanted to notify her early because that bill came to $192.27.
Did she pay you the $192.27?
No, she has not paid me the $192.27.
Where do we get to $240?
$240 is the one-year contract that I made, and I did tell her of. And I cut off her phone.
You cut off the phone, but
so it's for the remaining 10 months.
How much a month?
$24 a month.
Well, it's $24 a month, but what about the $192.27?
She hasn't paid me that. She has promised to pay me, but she has not paid me.
How much do you owe the phone company right now on her behalf?
$614.20.
Did you say that you were planning to pay the bills?
Okay, Your Honor,
to clarify the whole bill situation. When I got the phone with her, I did give her $55. She did connect my phone for me. She brought my phone to me. She brought me my $5, okay? 2 weeks later, she calls me. I go, how much is the bill? She told me how much it was. When I got the money a couple of days later, she called.
What do you mean when you got the money?
I had to get the money together because I got the message kind of late and I had to pay child care. So I got the money from a family member. 2 weeks later, she calls me again. She goes, the phone bill came in, you owe me $192. And I'm like, okay. I go, I want to see this bill. She goes, okay, you know, you can see the bill. So I'm thinking she's going to bring me the bill the next couple of days, drop it off to me.
Why didn't you go pick it up?
I don't know where she lives at.
Why does she have to come to you to show you your bill for your phone?
Well, I could have got it, but the time I get off work, it's really late at night time. I get off at around almost 9 o'clock at night.
So?
Well, I could have did that.
You didn't, so you owe her this $192.27.
And I don't have a discrepancy with the whole owing her the $192. The discrepancy is the $240. I never received a contract. I never seen a contract. My contract was not a year. Mine was as I paid. I prepaid it. That's how mine was.
You weren't prepaying, madam. The reason that you asked her to co-sign for you is that you wouldn't have to prepay.
Correct.
Of course I'm correct. Right now, it seems to me that you asked this lady, who was really a stranger, to do you a favor, to put your phone on her bill.
Correct.
And if you think that I'm going to allow her to be out one dime.
I'm not saying that she's allowed to be out one dime. I owe her $192.
No, she's going to be billed on her phone for a year's contract for you.
A year's contract that I did not tell her to cancel. She brought me the bill the day it was due. If she would have brought me my bill before then, not the day it was due, and then called me the next day and asked me for money, and my phone is disconnected, I'm only going to pay what I owe. And all I owe her is $192, not $240. I did not tell her to cancel the service.
Miss James, she canceled the service because she was having a lot of aggravation with you.
She didn't have any aggravation with me. She called me on the phone.
I could see that she was having a lot of aggravation because first you tell her the first bill that's a small bill, you tell her
there was never a bill. I asked her for the bills before then. I never seen any bills.
The first time she called and told you what your bill was for $42, you gave her a story that you didn't have the money right away. You just told that to me. You said you had to get it because you had some child care expenses.
Correct, but I was not told that she called.
Just a second. That is not her problem that you have child care expenses.
I never said it was her problem. That's why I made sure she got her money the very next day. That's not the discrepancy here.
No, you didn't give her the money the very next day. You didn't give her the $42 for the first bill the very next day. You know that, and I know that.
It was the next day. She didn't get it the same day when I talked to her.
You didn't give me the money until Friday.
Till Friday? You got the money way before then.
No, I didn't.
Now,
you know what? I kept a journal of everything.
Well, kept a journal of
Landros,
you got the money.
Talk to the judge, please.
Judge Judy is ready to rule.
Miss Landros.
Yes, ma'am.
I don't believe that this lady is going to pay you the $192.27. I don't believe she's going to pay you that. Because I see that she thinks that she's right. She thinks that you do her a favor, you connect total stranger's bill up to your phone, then you got to keep calling her for the money. Then she and worked out the arrangements herself with you right there. Instead, she gave you the phone and said, go ahead and do it.
I was working.
That's not her problem. Since when is she a partner in your misery? Since when is the stranger a partner in your problems? If you were so interested in making sure everything was going to be done just the way you wanted to, you should have said,
However, she's appointment coordinator. 2 different schedules, lunch hours different.
You always have an excuse for doing the wrong thing.
No, I'm not making an excuse.
You got an excuse for everything.
There is no excuse.
Everything.
I owe her $100.
Party's on Weidman versus Torres. Step forward, please.
43-year-old biker and part-time jewelry maker Charlie Weidman says he made a ring for his biker buddy Larry Torres and was never paid.
Order. All rise.
Now, this is case number 332 on the calendar in the matter of Weidman versus Torres. Parties have been sworn in, Judge. You may be seated.
What happened to you?
Carpal tunnel surgery.
Did it work?
Yeah, I can feel,
Good.
but I don't know how well.
Mr. Weidman, You and the defendant were friends for a while. Are those prescription glasses,
Yes,
sir?
ma'am.
You and the defendant were friends for several years.
5 or 6 years, yes.
And according to you, you do jewelry, make jewelry
I'm
part-time.
an electrician by trade. It's a little hobby on the side.
And you had a ring that he liked, and you agreed to make one for him.
Yes.
And had you discussed the price with him?
Yes. He's going to pay me $700. I'm trying to wrap it up within 3 to 6 months. There was no set payment plan.
And you made him the ring?
Yes.
Did you give it to him?
Yes.
And did he pay you for it?
No.
So that's why you're here.
Yes.
He got the ring back.
You gave it to him?
Yes, he came pounding on my door wanting his ring back. And I had it appraised for $300. He wanted $700. So I gave him the ring back.
He's lying. I wouldn't be going through all this right now if he gave me back the ring.
Why is he asking for $2,600 and not asking for the ring back? Because he's already got the ring back. He's just suing for verbal agreement, which I have nothing, you know, he never said anything about that. He gave it to me as a gift. You know, this man has stayed in my house, used my washer dryer, ate my food, drank my booze, never charged him a penny.
So
and
what
now
do you
he
think,
wants
so what do you think this is-
$2,600 for a $300 ring?
Forget $2,600. But assuming, sir, that you were close enough for him to live in your home, right? Why would you think that at this point he's suing you?
He's mad about something. I don't know. He wants money. I don't know what it is.
Tell me.
I don't know what kind of delusions he's having. I've never lived at his house, for one.
You stayed
I've
in my
stopped
house many
by,
times.
you know, a
Stopped
couple
by.
of times and spent the night a few times. We've gone out drinking together. And he's never given me that ring back, or I wouldn't be at this stage of the game.
Let me see the ring, sir. You say that you have one that was just like it.
Yes, ma'am.
Can I see it, please?
Like it.
Not the
Right there,
appraisal.
the
Just take off the ring. Let me see it.
I want to give her this paper.
I'm not interested in your appraisal. Your appraisal is really not important. Well, that is a handsome piece. Is the one that you made for him similar?
Exactly.
Excuse me, can I say something?
Yeah.
He didn't make it for me. He had 3 of them, the same thing, that he already had. He didn't make anything for me.
Okay.
And then he gave it to me as a gift.
Well, tell me how that came about, sir, according to you.
Well, he comes over all the time, you know, well, used to, and just sit around and have a few beers and drink and stuff. I've always admired the ring, and he said, here, you know, you can have
You
it.
must have had a fight about something.
No.
Something
Here's the
doesn't
ring.
sit right with
No,
me.
it doesn't sit right because every word out of his mouth's a lie at this stage of the
that's
game.
what you say.
I knocked on his door, wanted the ring back. There was this girl named Kelly. They weren't dating at the time. We went to Ojai to go have a drink, me and her girlfriend. We had a real bad time that night. And
that's
so
why
she
you're
came
suing
back.
Hey, don't talk to him. It's irritating. So at the time that you went for a drink with Kelly and her friend in Ojai,
Yes.
he wasn't around.
Yes,
And something happened when you were out there having a drink.
right.
Had you already given him this ring?
Oh, yes.
Okay. How much before?
Approximately a month.
Okay. So, approximately a month, you have a drink in Ojai with the girl he's dating and her friend.
That's a little bit incorrect. He was not dating her at the time. She used me to start dating him, and then he decided in his own mind that, you know, you took out somebody I wanted to see, and I'm going to keep the ring. And that's exactly what happened. And if he could sit up here with a straight face and tell you that I gave him a ring, I'm never giving a woman a ring, and on top of that, I'm not sleeping with him.
That's
You know, that's pretty bizarre for him to even say that.
Well-
I've never given anybody a $700 item in my life.
Mr. Weidman, the reason, quite frankly, you know, sometimes if people are really good friends, Mr. Weidman, don't get excited, please, sir, and don't shift from foot to foot. If you're a really good friend of his, it's not so bizarre that if you had several of these, even if you just had one of these, and he said, I really love that you might not take it off and say, I want it to please you.
I'm not financially able to give him a $700 item.
Okay. Now, you charge $700 for the ring.
Right.
Because there's $700 worth of gold here?
There's approximately about $450, $500.
Worth of gold, because it's a heavy ring.
Right, 26, 25.
But the other couple of $100s is for your labor in making
Right.
it. Now, the only thing that I have to determine is whether you gave him back this ring. And I can't understand why he would be here if you gave him back the ring, sir.
Money. That's all I can figure.
Your Honor, I make $1,000 a week. I'm a union electrician. I make $30, $45 an hour. I have my pay stubs right here, and believe me, it's not money.
Then why are you asking $2,600 for a $700
Because
ring?
I have the ring, you know, it was like $700. The cost coming from the Bay Area, I estimated about 200 miles. It's 800-mile round trip. Lost wages at $30, $45 an hour. 2 days is $487. Appraisal was $50. The process server was $115. Mr. Bonner had to take off work today at 27 an hour.
What's he doing here?
He's the witness that a few months later that Mr. Torres still possessed this ring. I figured he was going to start this today.
Step up here, sir. Tell me your name.
Richard Bonner.
Mr. Bonner, how do you know Mr. Torres?
He's done some work for me.
What do you know about this ring?
I've seen it.
When was the last time you saw it on Mr. Torres?
Oh, it's, I think it was March when he was doing some work for me.
How do you remember it?
He's done more work for me since then.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
I don't have the ring, so I don't know what
Well,
to tell you.
What? You may not have it, but I don't believe that you gave it back to him.
I did give it back to him.
I don't believe it.
And later today,
Tell me how much each one of these pool cues cost.
We figured between $1,800 and $2,000 per cue.
And what do these pool cues do for $2,000 a piece?
real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Charlie Weidman claims he made a ring for his biker buddy Larry Torres and was never paid. Larry says he gave the ring back to Charlie.
Mr. Torres, it is not common sense that you gave him back the ring and he goes to the trouble of serving you with summons, which cost him money, having the ring appraised, which cost him money, if in fact he had the ring in his possession. That just doesn't make sense to me, sir.
No, I don't have the ring, so I don't know
Well,
what to tell you.
What? You may not have it, but I don't believe that you gave it back to him.
I did give it back to him.
I don't believe it. So I believe that you did not, in fact, return the ring to him. That doesn't mean that you still have it. I don't know what you did with it. Only you know what you did with it, and you didn't return it to him. Now, Mr. Weidman, I know you're suing for $2,600, and the truth of the matter is I'm not going to give you $2,600. I'm going to give you the $700 that you say you agreed on with this gentleman to pay for the ring. I also think that that gave you somewhat of a profit. You know, you said that there was
profit.
I'm speaking. That the gold in the ring itself was worth about $500 maximum, according to you. Mr. Torres was, in fact, a friend of yours. I don't see why you shouldn't charge him something, you know, because you did use your skill in making the ring. And if that's the way you do business with your friends, that's your business. But I'm certainly not going to give you a windfall of $2,600, sir. So the judgment in this case is for the plaintiff in the amount of $700. That's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
And now the next case.
Parties on Blondio versus Padgett. Step forward, please.
Billiard supply owner Peggy Blondio says she gave 31-year-old Tim Padgett $6,000 to make custom pool cues and is suing because he didn't finish the work.
Well, I must admit it's nice to know at my age you can learn something new. This case is about pool cues.
Yes, Your Honor.
And you, Miss Blondio, claim that the defendant breached a contract that you had made with him by failing to produce some custom-made pool cues for you within an appropriate period of time. You gave him $5,000 deposit? $6,000 deposit. And he didn't deliver.
Correct.
So why don't you first tell me how much each one of these pool cues cost?
We didn't have an exact price, Mr. Padgett and I, as far as what he was going to charge me. We figured between $1,800 and $2,000 per cue.
And what do these pool cues do for $2,000 a piece?
Well, they're like a piece of art. based on the person that makes the cue, the materials that are in it. These cues were to have ambonia burl, 14-karat gold, and a lot of ivory.
And is this your business?
Yes, I work for Beach Billiard Supply. I'm an owner, and I've done this for 11 years.
When did you make this agreement with him?
I gave Mr. Pageant a check on August 9th, 1996. The verbal contract went into agreement at that point. My store manager, Ken Harity, was the witness to that and was involved in deciding what the cues would be made out of and whatnot.
Okay, and what was the promised delivery date?
They were to be delivered in October of 1996.
And they weren't?
That's correct.
And he still has your $6,000?
That's correct.
All right, Mr. Pageant. Now, I see that there's something over there that doesn't look like a telescope, so it must be one of these fancy pool cues. Is that what one of those pool cues looks like? I would really like to see a $2,000 pool cue.
This is they're not finished. I stopped production in September. That was one of the anniversary cues, not complete.
September of '97, you stopped
yes,
production.
Your Honor.
Bird, could you get that? You don't have to put it together. I could sort of take a look at it.
No, this is two separate cues, Your Honor. This one here is a $10,000 pull stick.
It's $10,000?
Yes, Your Honor.
It can't fit on your finger, does it?
No, it can't.
If it can't fit on your finger, it ain't worth 10 grand. Well, it certainly is lovely. How long does it take you to make one of these things, sir?
Average 3 months to a year, depending on the materials and...
A year to make one?
Yes, Your Honor.
No, you can't. You got to be kidding me, sir.
No,
Because
that's
if you
not
charge,
correct.
shh, don't help. Because if that were true, then you only make $2,000 a year.
No, Your Honor, a lot of the time is just sitting time. When you have a large amount of money invested in materials, as I do in these cues, they sit for 3, 4, 5, 6 months before I put the actual gold in, the ivory in.
Why do they sit?
Because cues warp. They warp, and then if I was to sell a cue for $2,000 and 3 months later the person comes back and says the cue's warped, I have to replace that cue.
So it's got to sit and sort of ripen with age.
Exactly, Your Honor.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
Did you say, I'm having trouble with material, I
told her
can't get the material, you can either wait or I'll give you your money back? Did you say that to her?
No, the money was spent.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Peggy Blondio is suing pool cue maker Tim Paget because he took her money and then broke their agreement by failing to make 10 custom pool cues.
Now, you took her money in August of 1996.
This is correct.
And you stopped production in September of 1997.
The agreed date was not in October. That's an impossibility. My name is in the Blue Book of Pool Cues. It says right in here that it takes me 3 to 8 months to make a cue, and that was 2 years ago.
Just a second. 3 to 8 months.
Correct.
So August, September, October is not an outside, is not something that's out of fantasy, sir, because even according to you, 2 years ago, when you first entered into a contract with her in August of '96, you say that you could make a cue between 3 and 6 and 8 months. So August, September, and October. That's 3 months.
That's a very plain cue, Your Honor. That's like a $400 to $500 cue. I did not tell her I would have them done in October of '96.
When did you tell her you would have them done, according to you, sir?
There was a BCA show in July of '97. I said I would try and have the first 3 done by then.
So you're telling her that she has to wait a year for her cues?
Originally, no. July of '97 was the show in Las Vegas.
That's 11 months later.
That's
August of '96 to July of '97.
okay.
That's 11 months later.
Correct.
That's when you said you would have them for her.
Exactly.
And you didn't.
I told her in January that I had not received the material yet. I was having major problems with the wood, that it was going to take longer. She asked me for a date, and I could not give her one.
Well, then why didn't you give her her money back?
She didn't ask for it. She just said, get them done as soon as you can.
Excuse me, I did.
What did you say?
My mother, who's my business partner, had not contacted Mr. Pageant in November, requesting the money back because I had come into some financial situations where I needed the money. So she had asked him to replace the money. I also
Did somebody call and ask you for
Her
the money
mother
back
asked
in
me for the
November?
money back. I confronted Peggy. I said, Peggy, is this true? Do you want the money back? And Peggy says, no, don't pay any attention to my mother. I do not want the money back. I want the cues. Get them done as soon as you can. Those were her exact words.
No.
What was the next conversation that you had with him after your mother had the conversation with him and asked for the money back?
I told him that, yes, I was entering some financial situations, that I did need the money back. He said that he'd already invested in the materials and therefore couldn't give me the money back. Then I said I needed the cues as soon as possible as we were entering the Christmas season, and my hope was to sell them then.
Well, that's not so far off. He said, I've already invested in some material money, and you said, well, if you've already done that, as long as you get me the cues before Christmas, then fine. And what did he say?
Well, in November, I was told I'd have him in the first or second week in December. In December, I was told I would have him in January. In January, I was told I'd have him in February because I wanted to go to a trade show. They never were produced. I tried to at least get 3 cues because there were supposed to be 10. That never materialized. My bi-weekly phone calls were reduced to weekly, monthly, and then bi-monthly. My store manager, Ken Haggerty, was witness to the date of completion that Mr. Pageant had stated to me, and that was October.
Step up. Tell me your name, sir.
Ken Haggerty.
Were you there when they made this contract?
I was.
And what do you recall was said?
To the best of my recollection, what we talked about, because I was part of the conversation, was what was going to be in the cues, approximately how much they would be worth, and when we would possibly get some of them. Hopefully, we asked to have at least 1 cue because we planned on a whole advertisement around this particular anniversary cue, and we were hoping to get at least 1 to take a photograph of to put in magazines.
What did he say about delivery, if you remember? Make sure if
To the best of my recollection, it was going to be by October, and then it became November, and then it became December, and it just progressed. And I spoke to him personally a couple of times, asking when can we get our cues, and I continually got excuses why we couldn't get them, and that was it.
Mm-hmm. Now, sir, to date, you do not have any pool cues to give them. Is that right?
I stopped production on them when I was served papers by her attorney. And that was September 17th, Your Honor.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
Did you say, I'm having trouble with material, I can't get the material, you can either wait or I'll give you your money back? Did you say that to her?
No, the money was spent. I have receipts for over $5,000 worth of material that was sent out.
Just a minute, that's not her problem. You made an agreement with this lady to make pool cues for her within a reasonable period of time. According to you, that was, according to the book, 3 to 8 months. And 8 months after she gave you $6,000, she still had zippo, nothing. So you breached the contract. You got to give her back the money. My limit is $5,000 here. Judgment is for the plaintiff in the amount of $5,000. That's all. Woo!
Body's not excused. You may step out.
Judge
Thomas versus Lewis. Step forward, please.
27-year-old security guard John Thomas says his former friend Denise Lewis filed false charges of sexual harassment against him, causing him to be fired from his job.
Order. All rise. Quiet in the courtroom, please. All rise.
Your Honor, this is case number 306 on the calendar in the matter of Thomas versus Lewis. Parties have been sworn in, Judge. You may be seated.
Mr. Thomas, your lawsuit alleges that the defendant filed false allegations against you of sexual harassment, causing you, at least temporarily, to lose your job?
Yes.
And suffer all kinds of emotional trauma and stress and embarrassment.
Yes.
Did you work together in the same office?
No, ma'am.
Well, tell me how you knew her.
We cordially met in the lobby area, and...
In the lobby of a building where you both worked?
Yes.
What kind of work were you doing?
I'm in the security field.
So you were a security officer?
Yes.
Go ahead.
And, you know, from time to time we spoke, and then every now and then we went to lunch, you know, socialized, and talked everything. And everything was pretty cool. There was a
There
situation.
came a time when you alleged that you lent money to the defendant.
Yes.
And that precipitated her making these allegations against you.
Yes.
Well, tell me about that, sir.
Okay. Well, as I said, she was having some problems. And she asked my assistance as far as loaning her some money for a motel that she had wanted to stay in to relocate from the current place she was at. And so, you know, I went and I assisted her in that matter. She stayed there for a couple of weeks.
How much money did you actually loan her?
Well, it wasn't a direct cash flow. I utilized my a credit card, so I would be able to keep a record in the future.
How much?
$250.
Okay. $250.
Yes, $250.88.
Okay, so you helped her out with the motel from moving from one place to another.
Yes.
And then what happened?
Then at that time her apartment was ready, and she again asked my assistance to help her relocate to the apartment. Well, she didn't have the funds required to rent out the truck, so she asked if I could utilize my credit to rent the truck out, and then once we've completed the move, she would reimburse me of the initial truck use funds.
And how much was that altogether?
Altogether, that was $57.24 for the truck and $6.25 for gas to refuel the truck.
Now, did she pay you back any of this money?
No.
So there came a time when you started to ask her for the money.
Yes.
And then what happened?
Okay, the disagreement arose around the time when we were trying to negotiate a way to return the truck. Well, apparently she was agitated because I didn't want to loan her my credit card and so she can return the truck and then return the credit card back to me. So that pretty much fueled the disagreement. Well, to pretty much separate myself, I said, well, go ahead, return the money that you owed me. This is the money that you owed me, and we'll just go our separate ways. She responded in a threatful manner, basically stating that, you know, if you don't leave me alone, you're going to regret that you ever met me. So I left it alone Sunday, and Monday morning I called her again, you know, once again trying to see if we can't negotiate this in a mature manner. She wouldn't speak to me, so what I did is I conjured up a letter to her and just basically broke down everything that she had owed me.
Okay, so you sent her a letter.
Yes.
When did she make these allegations against you of sexual harassment?
I sent the letter to her Monday, and the allegations were brought to my attention that Thursday.
Okay. To make a long story short,
Yes.
the charges were subsequently all dismissed.
Yes.
But you had to be transferred to a different location. You took a decrease in pay according to your papers. Is that
yes,
right?
Yes, what had happened is that they had pretty much put me in rover status, where I worked at certain assignments for the going price that they were
So
paying
you earned
officers.
less, Mr.
Yes.
Thomas. You earned less. But you're suing her for $5,000, clearly much more than this. And the reason you're suing her for $5,000 is because you say she wrongfully made these accusations against you.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Ms. Lewis?
Yes.
Let me hear from you.
Well, Your Honor, first of all, we did work in the same building. When I met John, I told him from the beginning that I'm not looking for anyone. Okay, I moved out here from another state. I came out in January. I secured a job in February. Then we met, I think, in March. He would come up to me, give me candy, walk with me while I was on break, and I told him strictly that I just wanted a platonic friendship and nothing more. John continued to, everywhere I was, he seemed to automatically show up. He was a friend to me. You know, we went out a couple times to the movies. I never asked John for any help of any type of monetary source because I make 3 times more money than he makes, okay? I never asked John for any money. He insisted that he knew where I was staying at a motel downtown. I was happy with that. I knew I was going to stay there until I secured an apartment, which is what I did. But the reason he wanted me to move because he did not have access to me the way that he wanted access to me, because it was a security building and there was no visitors allowed in the building. So he suggested to me that I move to another motel in Culver City.
This is the first hotel that you were in?
This is the first hotel that I was at. This is the hotel I planned to stay at until I found my apartment. He knew I was looking for an apartment. He knew I was looking for a car. He went around and got numbers for apartments. Oh, you should move here. He even went to his complex, suggested I go there, and I decided the same day not to move there because he was...
Stop for a second.
Okay.
Sound like a very intelligent, together lady. Right? And you just told me that you were really happy with where you were staying, and you were going to stay there until you found a permanent apartment.
Right.
But you moved.
Right.
Into a different motel.
Right.
One that he was happier with.
Right. I moved.
Why?
Because it was closer to my job. Right now, I had an hour-and-a-half commute from downtown to Westwood.
So?
And I decided to take his offer up because it was nicer, it was closer to my job.
Fine.
Okay.
And he laid out some money for you.
No, he did not. I was paying a certain weekly amount of rent by the week where I was. I had that money. Only thing he had to put with the money was another $40.
Whether it was $40 or 40 pennies.
Okay.
According to him, it was $250.88. According to you, it was $40. You just told me that you earned 3 times as much money as he did. Why in the world would you take $40 from him? Why?
Because I did not have the money at the time. I was between pay periods.
Judge Judy will continue in a moment.
I have a greeting card from her, and the title says, "To the man of my dreams."
Once I dreamed of someone special. Now I know that I was dreaming of you.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. John Thomas says his former friend Denise Lewis falsely accused him of sexual harassment. Denise says John is angry because their friendship never turned into romance.
Now, when did you make this report of sexual harassment?
After the week after I moved into my apartment.
Why?
Because he tried to force himself on me after we moved the refrigerator and the bedroom furniture into my apartment.
Well, tell me about that, madam.
Okay, after the things were moved into the apartment, he laid down on we put everything in the living room because I had to paint the bedroom. He laid down on the mattress and he called me in there and he threw me down on the mattress and started making sexual moves on me. And it took me about a couple minutes to push him off of me, and I asked him to leave.
And he left?
After some screaming and yelling, and yes, he did.
What kind of screaming and yelling?
I was screaming to get out of my apartment, that you don't live here.
And he left?
After some time, and he left when he got ready to leave.
So that's when you filed a complaint of sexual harassment against him?
Not only for that reason, was because the Saturday morning when he was supposed to come back and get the truck, I asked him to leave. We had an argument. I asked him to leave.
So you still had the truck?
The truck is still there. He has the keys to the truck.
Okay. So he said, so he had his car and he wanted you to help him take the truck back.
Right.
And what happened then?
I didn't open the door for him.
Why?
Because I was upset with him because of what he had tried to do. Okay, he never came to me and asked me to try and work things out, to try and say, okay, I owe you this money, let's try and make some type of arrangements. The next thing I knew, he had left a letter on the counter of where I work, and it was a bill for how much he assumed that I owe him.
So tell me when you made this allegation of sexual harassment, after you got the bill?
No, I made it like a few days later because he was calling and harassing me at work.
He was calling and asking you for what?
He was calling, he said he wanted to get together and talk. And I said, I don't want anything else to do with you because of your behavior, because you have been harassing me.
When did you make that statement to him?
I made it on Monday. And I asked him not to call me again, and that I will pay him his money.
So did you pay him the money?
No, I did not. Because
Why?
Because he kept harassing me.
Just a minute. Why didn't you pay him the money? Maybe if you paid him the money, he would stop harassing you. Maybe if you paid him the bill, he would feel as if he wasn't so used.
Yeah.
And then he would leave you alone.
Yeah, well, maybe if he had come to me as an adult and not someone threatening me with gang violence and I'm going to get the Bloods to kill you and this and that, maybe if would have come to me in an appropriate manner, I would have been more than happy to settle with him, just like I tried to call him 2 weeks ago. And I asked him, why did you file this lawsuit against me? And I said, can we come to some kind of agreement because I want this to go away? And his comment was, after several moments of silence, at 27 years old, was, you started it.
Well, Miss Lewis, you started it. Let me tell you something. I'm a woman, and I take allegations of sexual harassment in the workplace very seriously. But I resent it when women use allegations of sexual harassment as one-upmanship. And I'm telling you right now, the story that's coming through my head is an older lady with a lot more experience has a guy 5, 6 years younger than she is, who's clearly smitten with her. And what's coming out of her mouth is, no, no, yes, yes. No, no, yes, yes.
No.
You let him move you into another apartment? You're a smart lady. All you had to do was say, I'm happy where I am, John. I don't mind having coffee with you when we're here. You seem like a nice young man, but, you know, this is not a romantic thing. So you let him help you out once. And instead of doing the nice thing, the right thing, by totally cutting him off so that you're fair to him, you're not playing mind games with his head, you call him again when you need help. So he's saying to himself, she really likes me. I don't care what she says. She's letting me rent a truck with her and move her stuff into her apartment and help her place the furniture where it is. So clearly, she may be saying no, no, but her eyes are saying yes, yes.
Judge Judy will continue in a moment.
She strategically planned it to where I lost out on a promotion. I lost out on a raise.
Oh,
and, you know,
from $5 to $7. Wow.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Security guard John Thomas is suing Denise Lewis for defamation after she accused him of sexual harassment.
You're in your apartment. The furniture and the refrigerator are all set. Then you want no part of him. Well, he doesn't know that, so then he calls you and says, now I feel used, now I want my money. Your response was to file allegations of sexual harassment against him. I don't hear any sexual harassment, madam. He moved you into your apartment. He thought you were encouraging him. He left when you told him to leave. You may say you yelled and screamed, but I don't believe that there was any kind of attempted rape there. I don't believe that for 1 second. And your response was to try to injure him in his profession, which was a security guard. That's not fair.
Just because two people are friends does not mean that, okay, just because one party wants to go forward with a relationship and the other doesn't, that's not, I don't think that's encouraging.
Miss Lewis, you know that he wants romance and you don't. You don't use him.
He took advantage of me.
Oh, baloney.
He did. Oh. He knew that I lived out here by myself.
Nobody takes advantage of you, madam. I've known you for 5 minutes, and I can tell you right now, nobody takes advantage of you if you don't want that to happen. You took advantage of him. And the right thing to do was to let him know unequivocally from the beginning, this is not going anywhere, and not do anything to encourage him. Nothing to encourage him. And what you did was encourage him by continuing to allow him into your life. You have something you want me to hear? Is that why you brought that?
Yes. Due to her statement, she says that she never made any attempt to encourage me or whatnot. Here I have a greeting card from her, dated April 4th, and the title says, "To the Man of My Dreams."
Can I see it?
So,
just a minute. Show show this to the defendant and tell her if that signature looks familiar to her.
Yes, it does.
Uh-huh.
This card was not intended for him.
Well, why don't you tell me how you got this card, sir?
She gave me the card around that time. This was the envelope that she gave it to me in.
Can I see it, please? Why don't you try to explain that to me, Miss Lewis? How did he come into possession of a card that wasn't meant for him? Why don't you try to tell me that?
He took it out of my briefcase when he was giving me a ride to work. That card was not intended for him.
Who was it intended for?
Someone else.
Someone else who also moved furniture?
No.
I don't believe you. I don't believe you. Once I dreamed of someone special. Now I know that I was dreaming of you.
Judge Judy is ready to rule.
I have never been interested in him. You know, I'm not interested in overweight men.
You used him, Miss Lewis. And then in order to get rid of him, you filed a complaint against him for sexual harassment. Oh, yes, that's exactly what you did. And you injured him. You injured him in his job. You had him moved from his job. He suffered embarrassment. He suffered humiliation. And at least something else that I find equally as disturbing is we have finally reached a point in this country, at the end of this century, where we do not permit people of either sex to be sexually harassed in their workplace. And unfortunately, it's because of ladies like you that people look at these lawsuits and wonder if they are all real. That diminishes the real allegations of sexual abuse and of sexual harassment in the workplace. It's not supposed to be used as a hammer to solve all the problems that you have. It's supposed to be used sparingly and when it's true.
You don't know that it's not true?
Oh, I know that it's not true, madam. I know that you used him.
That's not true.
You used him. You knew he was smitten with you. You used him. And when you were finished with him and he wouldn't leave you alone, in order to get rid of him so that you didn't have to look at him anymore, you filed an allegation of sexual harassment against him that was ultimately investigated and dismissed because you have been reinstated, correct?
And it was not the first of its kind.
I haven't asked you about your history either. Right? Whether this is a modus operandi for you. We understand each other, Miss Lewis? I am awarding you $2,500, Mr. Thomas. And I hope that it serves as a lesson. Judgment in this case is for the plaintiff in the amount of $2,500. That's all.
Thank you. Parties are excused. You may step out.
Judge Judy will continue.
Wilson Chaydez versus Smith. Step forward, please.
25-year-old John Wilson and his girlfriend Barbara Chaydez say Quincy Smith and his pals harassed and threw beer bottles at them during a drunken bus ride.
Order. All rise.
Your Honor, this is case number 310 on the calendar in the matter of Wilson Chaydez versus Smith. Parties have been sworn in, Judge. You may be seated, sir.
Are you two folks married?
No.
Dating?
Yes.
Do you live together?
No.
I have co-complaints. One for $1,000 filed by you. The other $500 filed by you. And you are claiming that the defendant, while in the company of several others, assaulted you by throwing bottles which shattered on you.
Correct.
And the car. And the car that you were in. And according to your complaint, sir, you were in a car with a lot of other people.
Yes, limo bus.
A bus. A limo bus. So why don't you first tell me about this limo bus, and then we'll get to what happened with it.
It was mine and my twin brother's 21st birthday, and we rented it so that all our friends could gather together, all go as one, no one would drink and drive, and we'd go bar hopping.
And you did that?
Yes.
What time did you board this bus?
Approximately around 8.
And how many bars had you been to before you came on the plaintiffs?
1.
What time did this occur?
About 11:30.
You hit more than one bar between 8 and 11:30?
No, ma'am.
So you stayed in that bar for how long?
A couple hours.
Okay.
We also, we drove around. It's a nice bus. I mean, you like to spend time in it. It has VCR, a sound system, everything like that. People can dance, walk around. It's very large.
And how many people were in this bus?
Approximately 25, give or take a few.
And you paid for the bus?
No.
And they...
Everyone pitched in the same amount, about approximately $20.
Now, you spent a couple of hours in a bar, one bar, you said. Is that right?
Yes.
So you made another stop or two on the way. Go to a liquor store?
Yes.
How many liquor stores did you go to?
Okay, we stopped off at a supermarket when we first entered the bus, got some alcohol, drinks, whatnot, went to the went to the first bar, spent some time there, about an hour and a half, 2 hours, I don't know. And then we went to the next liquor store.
So you bought liquor twice?
Yes.
So everyone was pretty well blotto.
No.
Well, when we ran into the defendant here, they were pretty much intoxicated.
Well, why don't you tell me how, unfortunately, you came upon this birthday party?
Well, we had just come home from Barbara's parents' house. It was about 11:30 at night. The only entranceway into our house is through an alley. At that point, we were living together. Now we're not. There was a limo bus parked blocking the entire alleyway. It was parked illegally. People were outside of the bus urinating on the buildings, and they had open containers. We waited a few minutes. We honked, tried to get them to move up. They didn't comply. At that point, Barbara got out of the vehicle and asked one of the members to move.
Somebody that was outside of the bus?
Correct.
Where was the driver of the bus?
We were at the rear end of the bus. We approached the first person we saw.
The driver of the bus was in there the whole time.
Just a second. So you approached Barbara, the first person that you saw at the rear of the bus, and said, could you please move?
Yeah, asked very politely, and he just slurred in my face and told me to screw off, go around, we're not doing it. And I just didn't know what to do and asked him to get out of the car, which he did.
Your Honor?
Sit. So did you get out
When she entered the vehicle again, and I could tell that they told her no, I then got out of the car. Now, keep
What's
in
your
mind,
first name?
John.
John! My first issue with you, sir, is what?
Couldn't tell you.
Can you tell him?
I think so.
You came across a bunch of people that you saw outside urinating on buildings, John. You don't send your girlfriend out of the car to tell them to move. You get out of the car to tell them to move.
This was, we didn't see all this until we got out of the car, till both of us were out of the car.
I mean, I don't see late at night you going by yourself to this group of people. You know.
There was a lot of girls, too, a lot of young girls around with them, too. I mean, it just looked like a bunch of partiers, so we didn't think anything of it. We asked politely. When they were rude and everything, that's when we just got back in our car and waited.
Who did you ask?
Hey, listen to me.
We never got off the bus. We never, my cousin, this is my cousin right here.
This is my witness.
And my teammate, and we never got off the bus ever.
Did I ask you a question?
Well, I can't stand to listen to you laugh.
Just a second, did I ask you a question?
No, ma'am.
Go ahead.
When Barbara entered the vehicle, I got out of the vehicle, went up to the first person I saw and said, hey, this is the only way to get to our house. Can you please move up the bus? When I got out of the vehicle, of course, other members of the party came up. They see a guy coming out, automatically everybody's instincts comes into play, and then when they create a confrontation. As soon as he said no, I threw up my hands and said, okay. I mean, I'm not stupid. I'm not going to go up to a whole group of guys and pick a fight with them.
So what
Two
did
or
you
three,
do?
yeah, whole group, no. At that point, we got back in the vehicle and waited. This is a very busy street. We have a large police force that patrols the area. I figured, hey, we'll get in the car, a cop's going to come by. These people are going to get busted. They're plastered. No cop came by. We waited about 2-3 minutes. People started getting back in the bus. It pulled up. At that point, we said, great. Pulled into the alleyway, go up, I'd say, about 50 feet to our fence, which you have to get out of the car to unlock the padlock to get into our driveway. When I exited the car to unlock the gate, I heard, hey, you want to start something? I turned to my left. I saw a group of guys coming at me with bottles in hand. As soon as I saw this group approaching us, I turned to Barbara and I said, get in the car now. At that point, she looked at me, eye contact. A bottle flew right past her face. Hit the car, exploded. Dove into the car, and we gunned it. As soon as we slammed the doors, the back window shattered from a beer bottle. Okay,
A lot of
bottles,
beer bottles.
plural, lots of bottles. We immediately sped up, I mean, I don't know how we didn't hit nothing going down our alley, going that fast. Went directly to 7-Eleven down the road and called 911. At that point, the bus pulls by, stops at the red light. All the members on the left-hand side of the bus roll down their window and laugh at us while we're standing there calling the police.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
This is going to be a more expensive birthday party than you thought. Much more expensive.
And later today,
His mother doesn't want him to have this car. He knew that, which is why he kept it a secret. You took advantage of him.
real cases, real people. Judge Judy. John Wilson and Barbara Chaydez say Quincy Smith and his pals harassed and threw beer bottles at them during a drunken bus ride. Quincy claims he's innocent and not responsible for his friend's actions.
So the windshield was shattered. The back windshield was shattered
Correct.
on your car. And who was hit with the glass?
I was barely missed by it, and it hit my car door and shattered all over me. I had to take a shower and take all my, totally change and everything, because I had glass everywhere.
What was the damage to the car?
We have pictures.
We have
of the
pictures and
vehicle.
bills.
Now, once the police did arrive to come take our statement, they immediately got a priority call that there had been an altercation at a bar down the street, so they had to leave us. Well, it turns out the altercation was this member and his party had stopped at their next bar and assaulted 2 police officers.
Undercover cops or something. We don't know the whole story.
Okay, now I'll hear from you.
Okay, first of all, I'd like to say that I have empathy for the plaintiffs. What happened to her was an awful thing. Should never happen to anyone. But I know for a fact they can't say I did it because I never even got off the bus. They can never pinpoint me out. I didn't get off the bus. I don't know what happened off the bus. I mean, even if the bus driver would have saw something, I mean, it was his responsibility to stay there.
Which bus company did you use?
It was, I believe it was called VIP limo buses.
When you called them, how many people did you say were going to be on the bus?
About approximately 25. You can get, the buses they have will fill 20 to 25, and I believe they even have one larger than that.
And when you called the bus company, did you have to reserve the bus with a credit card?
No.
When did you pay them?
You pay a deposit down,
Well,
and then when,
a
okay, then when they arrive, you pay the rest.
Well, I'm asking you,
Okay.
did you pay the deposit in cash or a credit card?
Check.
A check?
Yes.
Yours or your brother's?
Mine.
Yours. So let me understand this, Mr. Smith.
Okay.
You rented the bus.
Yes.
You, sir, are absolutely right that these people can, in all probability, not say who it was who threw a bottle other than the group. Is that right?
That's correct.
That doesn't make you not responsible for this incident, sir.
It didn't even happen on the bus that I was responsible for.
Oh, it happened, sir.
It happened,
with
yes.
people. It happened with people that you invited to celebrate your birthday on a bus. You are still, sir, responsible for the behavior of those people. You. Because somebody is guilty and somebody is innocent. Now, they don't know who it is, but you, who arranged this party, are responsible for their losses because you are in the unique position, sir, if you are not drunk, to know who in that party got off the bus and who in that party actually damaged their property and attempted to assault them with what I consider a deadly instrument, which is a heavy beer bottle.
So,
not them. They're not in that unique position to know. You are.
So I'm responsible for everyone on the bus,
Every single person.
on the bus, and off. Everyone who was also an adult.
Every single person that was partying with you at your birthday party, sir. You
I
hired
don't know.
the bus.
I never got off the bus. I don't know.
Doesn't make any difference, sir.
It does to me.
This is going to be a more expensive birthday party than you thought. Much more expensive. Now, you have something that you believe is meaningful to this case that you wish to contribute?
Yeah, I do, Your Honor.
Sure.
First of all,
Step up right there.
Okay, I'm sorry. My cousin and myself never got off the bus at any point. And
Didn't you understand what I just said?
I don't know how you can expect him to keep track of 25 people.
He invited them to his bus.
So how is he supposed to keep track of it if they're all adults?
If he can't keep track of them, then he shouldn't have invited them. And if they didn't do anything wrong, then he wouldn't be standing here today, sir.
Judge Judy is ready to rule. And later today,
He had it for a week and a half. He's blown the motor in it now. What good is it to me?
When you deal with a minor, you deal with a minor at your own risk.
real cases, real people. Judge Judy.
He invited them to come on board for a drinking evening. He is therefore responsible for everything that transpires during the course of that evening. And one of the things that transpired was these people were put in fear of their lives. And if he wishes to turn around and do some detective work and try to figure out who it was that got off the bus and threw bottles at them and smashed their cars,
I hope he would.
That's... no, you!
No, I
Not
hope he
them.
would. My cousin doesn't want to be here. Do you think if he knew who did it, he would be taking the blame for this?
Well,
I can't
then
afford
he
to
should
hear
have
it.
been
I
more
afford here.
selective about who he invited on the bus. And he should have seen to it that once the people on the bus started to drink a little too much and started to get a little out of control, he said to the bus driver, who he had hired, because you remember, he sent the check, he hired the bus. These people are a little too unruly. You better take us home because I don't know what's going to happen with them. You, sir, between these innocents and you, you're responsible. Judgment in this case is for one plaintiff in the amount, Barbara, in the amount of $1,000, and you, sir, the amount of $500 as requested. That's all.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Parties are excused. You may step out. There you go. Sorry. I'll get back to your record, please.
These people do deserve money, but I believe I'm not the one responsible for it. I think I would have been much better off using a different defense, like the bloody glove defense. This is just ridiculous.
And now the next case.
All parties on Schramm Snyder versus Blankenship. Step forward, please.
Bookkeeper Vera Schramm says her neighbor, 29-year-old Marcy Blankenship, ripped off her 15-year-old son Toby when she sold him a car that doesn't run.
How old are you?
I'm 15.
You went and bought a car from the defendant.
Yes.
Did you tell your parents?
No.
Why?
Because I thought they'd say no.
How much did you pay for this car?
$400.
Where'd you get the money from?
My bank account.
When did you find out that he had bought the car?
Almost a week later on November 4th.
You're his mother.
Yes.
Tell me how you found out that he bought the car.
I had called his friend's house to see if he was there. And while I was on the phone, the other parent said, by the way, I'm a little concerned about what we're going to do with Toby's car. I said, car? What do you mean car? Like vehicle? He says, oh yeah, it's parked out on the street, and what are we going to do for street sweeping day? I said, didn't know anything about it. Where did he get it? How long has he had it? So of course we went right over and visited the car and the parents, and I got the paperwork.
Now, you were keeping this a secret?
Yes.
How old were you when you bought the car?
15.
How did you find this car?
I was walking home from my friend's house and I just saw it on the street.
They have a for sale sign?
Yes.
How much were they asking for the car?
$700.
So you paid $400.
Yes.
Who drove the car to where it was ultimately parked?
We pushed it because it didn't run.
How far did you have to push it?
Like 6 or 7 blocks.
Did you ever move the car?
Oh, yeah, and we pushed it to the mechanic. Because she said all it needed was a tune-up, so we pushed it because it was right by his house.
Did you get it tuned up?
Yes.
How much did that cost you?
$55.
And then what happened with the car?
Still didn't run because we took it and we got we got it checked and stuff, and it said that one of the cylinders was bad, so.
What'd your mother say when she found out you bought this car?
She was real mad. And then she put me on punishment.
Where'd you get this $400 from? Did you work for the money?
I went to work in the summer with my dad.
So, you sold him a car.
Yes, I did.
Did you ask him how old he was?
No, I didn't.
Doesn't look 18 to me.
He knew about the car. He phoned 3 times on the car. He came by inquiring about the car twice. I asked him if the first night he came by if he wanted to drive it or if he wanted to leave me a deposit, and I would be more than happy to take the for sale signs off of it. He said no, he didn't have his wallet with him. So I figured he didn't want to drive it because he didn't have his license with him, and that was fine. I showed him the car in and out. I started it up for him and everything, and he didn't have a problem with it. He said it was perfect. He'd be back the next day to please not sell it.
How come I ask you if he doesn't look 18 and you give me this whole long story? Doesn't look 18 to me. Now, you may not know this, but I'm going to tell you now. You cannot enter into a contract with a minor because they're not always so clever. So that's why we have laws that protect minors from entering into contracts. So you have to give him his money back.
He had it for a week and a half. He's blown the motor in it now. What good is it to me?
Judge Judy continues in a moment. Vera Schramm is suing Marcy Blankenship because she sold her 15-year-old son Toby a car that doesn't run. Marcy claims she didn't know Toby was a minor.
When you deal with a minor, you deal with a minor at your own risk. Anybody who has half an eye can see that this young man is not the age of majority. You took advantage of him. I believe that you took advantage of him. And you can't do that. So you owe him $400. Sir, you paid $55 to have the car tuned up?
Yes, ma'am.
You're going to have to eat that.
Yes, ma'am.
That's a form of punishment. I'm sure your mother has something else planned for you if she hasn't already conjured up the appropriate punishment, including, at 15 years old, would seem to me, requiring somebody else to sign off if he wants to go take money out of the bank.
Absolutely. That's a lesson to be learned.
Sure is. So judgment in this case is for the plaintiff in the amount of $400. You did return the car?
Not yet.
Do it. She's got to get the car. He's got to get his money back, at least part of it. That's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out. Back to your rest, please.
Judge Judy continues in a moment. And on the next Judge Judy.
Parties on Flores versus Smith. Step forward, please.
45-year-old Nailani Flores says her late mother's hairdresser, Donald Smith, swindled her out of money before she died. Donald claims he and Nailani's mother were friends, and the money was a gift.
Order. All rise. Quiet in the courtroom, please. All rise.
Judge, this is case number 316 on the calendar in the matter of Flores versus Smith. Parties have been sworn in. Judge, you may be seated. Have a seat, please.
Miss Flores, your mother died suddenly. How old was she when she died?
73.
And you claim at the time of her death, the defendant owed her money. And why she gave him money.
Okay. At the time of her death, we went through her financial matters, and with her checkbook and her bank statements was her ledger. My mom was a bookkeeper for 45 years. My mom would not just knowingly give him a gift and write it down. I mean, if she gave a gift, she would not write it down. So
you can't go in somebody else's head.
That's correct.
Even if they're no longer here.
Right.
So you found her ledger.
Yes, I did. And with this ledger, I found his name, Donald Smith, of which I didn't know. I knew of him, but I've never met him before.
How did you know of him?
By my daughter, Tammy. Tammy had gone to dinner with them one evening. And my mom paid for dinner, which Tammy thought was kind of strange. Anyway, from there, from
Not
dinner,
in the 90s.
Okay. Giving him money to gamble. And Tammy goes, well, that's kind of strange. When she came back home, she said, something strange is going on here. I said, what do you mean? She said, well, he's taking money from her. Well, I mean, I didn't think anything about that till I found the ledger saying that there were bills incurred for Don. Doctor bills, loans to Don, more doctor bills, Mervin's charge cards. Also, she had just recently purchased you furniture, of which My mother also kept a daily log of telephone calls that were made to him, saying whether he called, whether he didn't call. It seemed like when he had his appointments, he would call her. She would also take him to work on a daily basis, which was like across town. They live in Las Vegas. She lives on the east side of town. He lives in North Las Vegas. So it was quite a commute for her.
So what?
And
I mean, what does that mean to you, Ms. Flores?
I mean that he was constantly calling and asking her to do things for him.
So what? Is there anything wrong with your mother's mind?
There wasn't at the time of her death, not that I know of.
And she was 73 years old, which today is not an old person.
Right. She was killed in a car accident. She hit a tree.
So let's just talk about the money that she gave him to go gambling, when they were out to pay for... That's really none of your business.
That is correct.
So, and I assume that you don't suggest that you're looking to recoup that money from him.
Absolutely not. Only what was borrowed.
Well, so that what I'd like you to do is to show me because that's primarily what I'm going to look at.
Right, it's right here. Also, here are credit card bills of which it says Dawn owes for these that were in her ledger. And here also is the furniture that she had purchased a month before she died.
Who wrote Dawn owes for that?
My mother.
Let me see.
Okay. Any and all transactions. Okay.
Okay. What was your mother's name?
Helen Roy.
She was a client, a steady client, and I did her hair. And struck up a friendship, and after I graduated, she just followed me. I still did her hair in the salons I was at, and the friendship still developed from there. She didn't talk to her kids a lot, and I didn't have any family.
That is not true. I'm telling you, that's not true. My phone bills.
Listen to me.
Okay.
He was quiet. Now you have to be quiet.
All right.
From what she told me, she didn't have the best relationship with him because they had owed her money. She had loaned them $10,000 to get their house years ago and had never even attempted to pay her back, and they did have a contract with her. So that made a gap between them. She did take me to work if I needed. She made sure.
I'm not concerned about her taking you to work, sir. I'm not concerned about her taking you to dinner. This is a lady who, I assume, was a little lonely, and she found your company appealing, and she wanted to spend her money on you. That's her business.
Judge Judy will continue in a moment.
I didn't have any family growing up. She showed me what a nice a grandmother and a mother was.
Aww.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Neilani Flores is suing her late mother's hairdresser, Donald Smith, for loans he never repaid.
Miss Flores, I'm looking at this one page that you're talking about.
The 2 pages,
well,
yes.
These 2 pages.
Yes.
And the others clearly indicate bills incurred for Dawn.
Correct.
That doesn't necessarily, madam, convince me that those were loans. You know, when you give money to somebody, especially, I can imagine a situation where you are mentality, you want to keep track of how much money you gave to somebody just for your own head. I mean, how many times do I wake up in the morning and I want to know how much money I have in my savings account, and my checking account, and how much money I gave to this church? That particular person has cost me that year. Do you understand? It could just as easily have been that's
correct.
$450 according to your mother. He still owes her $400 from this. Now, this piece of paper that it looks as if it's written in the same hand.
That is her writing, yes.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
But there is also no indication that this was a loan.
Right? That's correct. But if the money wasn't owed, she wouldn't have written it down.
I don't know that. I think that you have a difficult time. 6.
Of which we're still paying the bills for her, yes.
Okay.
His clothing receipts. There were many more receipts that weren't included.
Just a second. I'm looking for her handwriting on here, because I do see one, and it seems to match the handwriting in her book, in her ledger, on this credit card.
There's several Mervyn's receipts for men's clothing, of which are for him.
Well, just a second. You have to understand something, madam. What I just said to you was, there are certain things that clearly your mother had denoted as loans, owes, loans.
And all of this.
And certain things on which there are no notes.
They were all included in that book, though, Your Honor. You know, pinned inside together.
I only see one note of hers.
Right, they were all pinned inside.
Paperclip.
Paper clipped inside.
What?
There were also.
What I think she's trying to say is that my mother-in-law was keeping track of the bills and anything she had spent on them, and that what she's trying to say is that those look like they were all incurred as a loan to him.
Looks like is not a loan.
Okay.
Sir. Looks like is not a loan.
Okay.
Telling me?
Yes.
They weren't
clearly,
gifts, Donald.
Miss Flores, don't talk. Miss Flores. Don't
That's
talk
what's
to him.
wrong with the elderly,
Don't-
though. That's how they're getting ripped off.
Miss Flores, sometimes you're absolutely right. And sometimes a lady who is 73 years old, living far away from her family, a couple of times a week. Is that a fair statement?
Correct.
If she has to pay for some companionship by buying a present or by giving a shirt or by buying furniture, unfortunately, that happens. And then when there is a tragedy like this, the family feels as if, guarantee you, she didn't feel as if she was being taken advantage of. She was having a good time. Did your step up here. You went out to dinner and you went gambling with your grandmother and the defendant?
Yes, I did.
Did your grandmother look like she was having a good time?
Sure.
Right. How many times did you go gambling with your grandmother?
Every time I went up there.
Well, how often was that?
Once every couple months. Whenever I made it up to Vegas, I'd go.
So once every couple of months, you took Grandma out for a spin.
Yes,
How many
I
times
did.
did you go gambling with Grandma?
Usually once a week.
I took Grandma. Grandma didn't take me.
Just a thing. It's her money.
Judge Judy will continue in a moment.
As you can see, she started out with $35,000 in the bank. 2 years later, she depleted her savings. You make me nauseous. If this camera went on, I swear to God, my dad would knock out. I swear to God.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Neilani Flores is suing her late mother's hairdresser, Donald Smith, claiming he swindled her out of thousands of dollars before she died.
You're not responsible for your mother's debts. You know darn well that you're not under the law. So if you have to pay out any money for her, it's being paid out of her money.
What money? There's no money left.
Then if there's no money left, madam, then you don't have to pay anymore because children and grandchildren are not liable for the debts of their parents. I'm certain that your lawyer told you that. This is her money. If she wants to go gambling with him and give him money 5 nights a week because that makes her happy, it may not be smart, it may not be preserving her estate, but she's lonely and she's not going to live for every 2 months while when her granddaughter decides to come up and pay her a visit and take her out to dinner and gambling. That doesn't mean he's necessarily a nice person. I'm not even suggesting that to you. And I'm not suggesting that he didn't take advantage of her. He probably did.
I think so, too.
Absolutely.
I know. Why not?
A lot of people take advantage of the elderly.
That's sad.
Well, it is sad. However, it made her happy.
Why was she paying his rent if he had a job?
It made your grandmother happy. If she didn't want to do it, she wouldn't have done it. She was of sound mind, and if she had to pay for an occasional escort, which is what he was, and he said that they were really good friends. Bull. However, if she had to pay for it so that she had company a couple of times a week, that made her happy. Why are you complaining now?
Because we're paying for his bills.
No, you're not. What do you mean you're paying?
Because in the will, it stated my mom is the executor of the will. So any monies be paid out for any of her expenses be paid out of that. So we did
What's your first name?
Tammy.
Are you dumb?
No, I'm not.
Well, then let me tell you something. What you're saying to me is I tried to explain it to you. Because your mother is the executrix of your grandmother's will, she does not have to go to her bank account, her personal bank account, and pay 1 sou for your grandmother's debts. The only money that can be used to pay for your grandmother's debts is your grandmother's money, which is not your money, no matter what you think. It is not your money. There may not be anything left for you after you pay the debts, but you 3 people do not have to dig into your own. It was your grandmother's money, and she could do whatever she diddly pleases with it, and it pleased her. It gave her a certain amount of pleasure to sport him around. I don't know why, but it did. Now that I've taken care of that area, now I talk to you. There were certain things clearly here that she indicated you owed her.
Nothing that she gave, it was all gifts.
That's not true. That's clearly not true.
If it was as a loan, there would have been a contract made that I would have signed.
Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me?
No, I'm not. The 450 was I was in between jobs and she helped me out with the rent. I paid back the first payment of 40, and when I gave her that 40, she looked at me and says, "That's all I wanted to know was that you made the effort." She goes, "Forget about the rest."
Well, but that's not what it says here. That was a loan. Because that's what she is about this furniture. How'd you get the furniture?
That was delivered to me, my understanding, is a housewarming and a birthday present. I moved into a house I'm renting with my companion. It was a month of my birthday also. She wanted to go to a furniture store. She was asking me what I liked.
I can understand buying you...
After I'd moved in, what I had picked...
some clothes. I can understand taking you out to dinner. I can understand even giving you some gambling money when you go out. I don't have a problem with that. They may have a problem with $1,379 for furniture for you and your companion.
That was her choice. It was not asked of her. That's what she wanted to do.
No, I don't believe that. I don't believe that. That doesn't sit right with me. You have 2 men who live together, both employed, and there comes a point where certain things she wants to buy you, some clothes, she wants to take you out for dinner, she wants to make sure she has some company. But then there comes a point when it's sort of sickening. This is sort of sickening.
Why?
Why?
That was her choice. We didn't ask. I didn't ask.
I don't believe you. Did you just happen to be home when the furniture was delivered?
No, I was at work. I had to go home. No, I did not know it was going to be delivered that day.
You're full of baloney.
She also paid
Called me and I had to go down.
That didn't answer my question. It's not marked alone.
Judge Judy is ready to rule.
You're never going to recoup all the money that you gave him. It's not going to happen. But you should have at least some comfort in knowing that your mother had a good time. She did. She had some young people around her that made her feel good. Your mom didn't call an escort service and said, "Send me somebody to have a good time with." They treated her nicely. They showed her a good time. They probably better than going by herself to a casino. You know that that's true. And they took financial advantage of her. It's been happening for ages. But you don't recoup that unless there's some clear indication or some common sense, like with this furniture, shirts and stuff like... God. Okay. There are certain things that are clearly marked as loans. I'm counting up only those things, and I am including in it the furniture.
Okay.
Because you're sitting on it, you're sleeping on it, you're going to pay for it. And all those things together come to $2,104, judgment for the plaintiff. That's all.
Thank you.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
It's Judge Judy.
Parties on Bocock versus Bocock. Step forward, please.
27-year-old receptionist Sandra Bocock is suing her father, Bob, for money owed to the state for child care of her 9-year-old daughter, Jessica.
All rise.
Yeah, this is case number 2. Yep. Sir, have a seat.
Who are you, sir?
Herb Shavers.
You're a lawyer.
Yes.
I just wanted to make sure because I've read all of these papers. This is your father.
Yes.
Your mother?
Yes.
Ms. Bocock, according to your complaint, you are suing your father for money that you owe to the state.
Yes.
Came about because several years ago, your daughter, who was quite young, was removed from your care, according to all the papers and documents that I've read, for child support.
Yes.
And that care for about a year, a little less than a year, and then went into your parents' home. Correct?
Reasonably close, yes, ma'am.
How many years was the child with you?
About 6.
And for part of that time, she was with you as a foster child.
Yes, ma'am.
Which meant that you were getting money from the state as a foster parent.
Yes, ma'am.
That's the way things work these days, even if you're a grandparent. And then you were told that you had to file for either custody or guardianship of the child, and you consented to your parents having guardianship.
If I did not give my parents guardianship, I would never see my daughter again. She would go up for adoption. I would never see her again. I was not given a choice.
Doesn't make much of a difference. There's only one innocent in this
True.
case, and that innocent is this child.
True.
I mean, you made certain choices. You were told that she would be removed permanently if you let her have any contact with this man, and according to the papers that I read, you let her speak to him on the phone. She was just a little girl, and then you moved back in with him because you had some financial problems.
That's not true.
Well, according to the papers that I've read, Miss Bocock, your little girl was assaulted by this man. She was taken to the hospital. Bruises were noted. You were told at the time that the man had to be out of the house before you could get your daughter back. Correct?
That's correct.
To make a long story short, the child was with you, and there was a period of time when you had guardianship of the child.
Yes, ma'am.
After she had lived with you for several years as a foster child, and you began receiving welfare for her
AFDC, yes, ma'am.
to the tune of about $2,000. As the rules of the state are, parents are responsible for the support of their children. So the state pursued you for this welfare money.
Correct.
And you say that there was some sort of an arrangement with your father that he would pay this amount.
Yes.
He says that there was not, the amount wasn't paid, your driver's license was suspended, and your credit ruined.
Yes.
So why don't you tell me about the arrangement with your father?
On June 15th, at the last guardianship hearing,
look at me.
He knew that I had received the summons. I was being sued by the state for the welfare money, for the $2,392. He pulled me aside just before the last hearing and said, I will take care of this matter. I know you can't pay for it. I will take care of it. My lawyer at the time was standing right next to me. I'm a student. I'm a mom. I'm struggling. It's very difficult. It's not that I don't want to pay it back, but he promised to take care of it for me as a pledge. I'm nearly completion of my 2-year degree in biology, so I'm very close now, but it's very difficult. I'm financially very strained right now.
So you want to pay the money back because it's your loan.
Right.
It's your debt.
Right, but he promised to take care.
Let me hear your side of this, sir.
Well, ma'am, at no time have I ever said to anyone that I would pay this money either to her or for her. I did have a conversation after one of the guardianship hearings with her lawyer, Mr. Shavers, in which I asked him if he could get me information, a name of the district attorney and the phone number to talk to the person, because if you try and call in the district attorney's office, you get the royal runaround unless you have a case number. Because I had some things I want to discuss with him. What I didn't tell him at the...
Were you taking the money from the state because you needed it for your granddaughter, sir?
No. We could have supported her without it. In fact, most of the period of the guardianship, we didn't even know that we were eligible to receive it. It was a previous caseworker that said that we could receive that money, and in fact, it went for her daycare.
So how long did you have her in your custody without receiving any support?
I would say in the...
Step up, sir.
Your Honor. If
Yes.
I may, at any time during this whole guardianship issue, they knew that they could return my daughter to me with no strings attached. They
Well,
could
Ms.
return
Bocock,
her.
I don't believe that that's absolutely true.
I was absolutely willing to pay every cent to take care of her. I've never had a problem with that. But he promised to pay this amount. He said that he...
A problem. Let me tell you what they are, madam.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
My parents are lying, selfish people. I wanted him to honor his word this one time.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Sandra Bocock is suing her father Bob for money owed to the state for child care of her 9-year-old daughter Jessica. Bob and his wife Barbara claim they looked after the little girl for 6 years and aren't responsible for the money.
If you wanted your daughter back, and you say there was no impediment to you getting your daughter back, and you were no stranger to the family court, I'm not talking about a parakeet.
I understand.
We're talking about a child.
I understand.
You understand that the child was removed from your care for cause by the family court, and the cause was neglect, because they only place children in foster care unless you voluntarily... America, sir, they do not remove children from parents without cause. Is that a fair statement?
Let me say this, that I've been involved in several cases where the issue of cause was at best in question, never substantiated.
That's why you're not the judge. That's why if the judge determines there's cause, a lawyer doesn't second-guess them. I don't care what your view of the evidence was. The state cannot remove a child from a parent unless the parent voluntarily places that child or there is cause. So don't give me a lot of baloney. I've been in this business much longer than you have, sir. And that was my specialty. So if it's not yours, it was mine for 25 years. Now, you want to tell me your recollection of the conversation with Mr. Bocock?
There were two distinct and different conversations. One occurred in the hallway of the court following the hearing on June 15th. That conversation was involving Mr. Bocock, his attorney, the attorney for the minor as well, negotiations going back and forth.
Child had a lawyer.
Correct.
Child's always had a lawyer. They're called a law guardian, correct?
That's right, ma'am.
And the child should be returned to the mother, correct?
Not at that point, no. The discussion was...
That custody would be given back to Sandy, so all at once we're cold-cocked with this idea that there had been an agreement at the attorney's level that custody would be given back to Sandy, so all at once we're cold-cocked with this idea that we bring Jessica and she takes her home. And we
So
just
you wanted more of a transition, correct?
It was, except for his comment that it was a surprise to them, came as quite a surprise to the counsels involved. We normally work these things out before we appear at court, so the reluctance that was expressed was quite surprising to us.
Well, it's not surprising to me because according to your former client, grandfather of the child, he said what he wanted was a transition so that the child could at least finish. Sir?
Yes, ma'am.
That strikes you as being odd? The grandfather who's had custody of this child for 6 years says, listen, it's June 15th, school is over June 30th. You know, we need 2 weeks, and aside from the fact she's in school. That strike you as being peculiar, sir?
In view of the facts of the time, the fact that we've been discussing the transition for about 6 to 8 months before then, yes.
It did strike you as being odd. That's odd. Doesn't strike me as being odd to wait 2 weeks until school is over. You have children?
Yes, I do.
Please, give me a break. All right, so now we're past that. Now we're down to money. Let me hear the conversation about the money.
We had been discussing for months the return of the child to the mother. It was obvious that the grandparents, because of the timing that they had applied for the AFDC payments, was already after the time that we had already discussing returning the child to the mother.
Mm-hmm.
There's not an issue of financial need on behalf of the grandparents. It was a matter of timing. At the hearing, the grandfather stated that he would handle the AFDC payments.
Just a second. What you heard is, I will handle it.
The exact verbiage, I'm unsure of. What I recall is handle it or words to that effect.
Okay, so you're not as sure what the words were.
Not
Thank
the
you. You can have a
exact
seat.
word. There was another conversation.
Give me the other conversation.
The other conversation in context. Following the hearing on the 15th, I hand-carried all the court documents from the AFDC payments to Mr. Bocock's attorney the following day, confirmed the fact that Mr. Bocock was willing to handle the AFDC payments, and
Confirmed with whom?
confirmed to his attorney in the letter that I sent.
Just a second. You sent a letter to the attorney.
Correct.
You have a letter from the attorney to you confirming
do
that?
No, I do not have a letter disputing it either.
He doesn't have to dispute it. You have a letter you sent to him and say, here, your client says...
Received a letter back promptly.
I mean, this is a court, sir. You're a lawyer. You know...
Based on my extensive dealings with his attorney, had that statement been incorrect, I would have received a letter back promptly.
I mean, this is a court, sir. You're a lawyer. You know, you can't rely on that. You sent him a letter. Here, your client said he would take care of this, and he says, what, is he crazy? Takes him and throw in the garbage. You think that he has an obligation to respond to you? He has no legal obligation to respond to you.
But he did, in fact, respond.
How? Let me see.
The response was in the form of a conversation.
That's hearsay.
I understand
with the
that,
attorney.
It's also
Just a
operative
second.
fact.
With the attorney, not with him.
No, I had a conversation with Mr. Bocock.
Tell me about your conversation with Mr. Bocock, not a conversation that you had with an attorney.
Why did she move away to be with the man who actually is on record of having beat Jessica?
I was emotionally abandoned as a child. Of course I'm going to go seeking emotional comfort from somebody else.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Sandra Bocock says her father should be responsible to pay the state money owed for childcare of her 9-year-old daughter, Jessica. Bob Bocock says he took care of Jessica for 6 years and should not be held responsible for the money.
Tell me about your conversation with Mr. Bocock.
He told me to, if I would get the amount due that he had received, he would pay for that. He would reimburse that amount.
Did you ever say that to him, sir?
No, ma'am, I never did. I have a copy of the letter that I sent to my attorney
Can I see the copy of the letter
in
that you
response
sent?
to the letter that he had hand-delivered to her.
Let me tell you, I've seen this. I saw this letter. Have you seen this letter?
No, I've not.
Let me show it to you, sir. Evidently, there was some sort of a miscommunication. He said his concern was that they were asking her for more money than the child actually received from AFDC, and that the conversations that he had had with both you and his attorney dealt with the fact that he didn't understand why they were seeking more from his daughter than his granddaughter actually received from the state. All right. Listen to me very carefully, Ms. Bocock. How old are you?
27.
You made a baby, right?
Yes.
You made a baby at a time that you had no right to make a baby, that you weren't prepared to take care of a baby. But for the fact that your parents took your daughter out of foster care and agreed to become foster parents to this child, there is a very strong probability, based on the fact that this child was out of your care, that your social worker was absolutely correct, that the state would have moved in a proceeding to terminate your parental rights and free the child for adoption. There is no question about that. And you are an intelligent young woman. And how long has she been in your care?
2.5 years.
So for the first 7 years of her life, you supported her with nothing.
I gave her love and emotional support, which is more than they gave her.
No. She was in foster care for a year, which means some strangers gave her love and affection. And then she lived with your mother and father, who were up with her during the night, who wiped her nose when she...
Your Honor, yes, I did live there for a couple months.
I'm not talking about a couple of months, madam. How long did your daughter live with your parents?
I don't remember the exact years. She lived with her for a number of years. But why did I end up pregnant at 17? The emotional and physical abuse in that home is unimaginable.
You better stop blaming other...
bad.
Listen to me. You better stop blaming other people for your life's travails, madam.
I'm not.
Oh, yes, you are. Your father didn't make you pregnant. There are lots of ways to get away from a bad situation. Having a baby is not one of them. There are other avenues. To make a long story short, what the state is now asking you for is $2,000. And they're saying, over the years, the state of California has probably spent $150,000 in foster care payments and administrative fees for your daughter. We're not seeking to recoup that from you now that you're back on your feet. We're seeking to recoup $2,000 from you. Doesn't sound like a lot if you make a baby. $2,000 over 9 years doesn't keep a child in shoes.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
Ms. Bocock, get your act. And you can work out some sort of a system with the state to take care of this $2,000 that you owe them.
Your Honor?
Yeah.
I have paperwork. In the last week, I received papers that they were going to garnish my wages.
Good!
Take my driver's license.
Just a second. Good.
Okay.
They
Within
can
the
garnish your wages, and then you know that 10% of your wages are going to go to pay back the obligation. You know that 10% of your wages are going to go to pay back the obligation. Condoning, Mr. Bocock, the fact that you didn't really have a need for the money, and yet you took money from the state to support your grandchild. And I say that because even though the law gives you the right to do that, I always felt as if you didn't have a need for that and this was your blood, you should do it yourself. But between the two of you, you've got to pay for your child. Not him. It's not his obligation. It's your obligation. So, your lawsuit against your father is dismissed. That's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
Judy.
Parties on Campbell versus Nalepsky. Step forward, please.
21-year-old Robert Campbell says during a night of drinking and partying, his former friend Augie Nalepsky broke the passenger window in his van.
Order. All rise.
Yeah, this is case number 317 on the calendar in the matter of Campbell versus Nalepsky. Parties have been sworn in, Judge. You may be seated, ma'am. Have a seat.
You allege, sir, that the defendant kicked a window out of the back of your truck or car. Is that right?
Yeah.
And it cost you a couple $100 to have it fixed.
Yes, it did.
Why don't you tell me how that happened?
Well, first we started off at my friend's house, and we were going to go to the club that night.
Who's we?
Aggie, the defendant, and I, and Patty. We decided to go to the club, and she started off by drinking
Who's she?
Boone's, the defendant, a Boone's Hill farm.
What is
and,
that?
I don't know, Strawberry Boone's Hill.
Wine.
It's a wine. And then after that, we got in the car, and we drove to Club X, which is in the city, about 45 minutes away. And we got there, and the defendant, started drinking. She drank a cranberry and vodka when we got there. And then we went out and started dancing, Patty and I, and Aggie was there drinking. The defendant was there drinking, standing there. After that, we went back after we stopped dancing, and we came over, and Aggie said she wanted to leave. And I asked her why. And she said, I just want to leave. So I told her, you know, I was like, if I buy you another drink, you're going to stay? And so I gave her some money, and she went and bought a Hurricane.
What's a Hurricane?
It's mixed with like 5 or 6 different drinks. Like, it's mixed with gin, 151.
What's 150?
Rum.
And after that, me and Patty went back to dance again, and Aggie went and sat down and started talking to this guy. And I guess she was drinking then, too. She drank a beer, so I don't know what else she drank, because I wasn't there. I was out there dancing, but I saw her drink a beer. And then after that, after about 20 minutes, we stopped dancing. We came out, and we seen that she was just sitting there. And so after that, we just left. We all left. We got in my car, and we started...
The three of you?
The three of us got in the car. I helped her to the car, actually. And when we were driving on the freeway, she says she's hot. So me and Patty, the witness, rolled down the windows, and she was still hot. So she was trying to open the back window. And
What kind of car do you have?
It's an Astro van. I have a picture of
So it has a
van.
back pole window?
It has a side window. And then she proceeds to put her feet on the window to try to open it. And I'm asking the defendant, what is she doing? And by this point, she's pressing on the window very, very hard. And I look back, and as she's doing that, pressing on the window with her feet, like bench pressing it, it breaks. And I went like this, and it was a loud sound, a very loud sound. And I'm all, Aggie, what did you do? And then after that, we drove back to Concord, and As on the way, there was glass all in the car. And I told Aggie more than, I say, 6 times to get out of the glass and stop playing with it, because she was playing with it with her hands. That's how intoxicated she was. And I told her to get out of the, out of the glass. And she passed out on the seat. So when we got back to Concord, she was telling me, I'm sorry. And I didn't yell, I didn't do anything, because I do that to some people, but we were best friends. So I didn't really understand why she did it, because there was no reason for her to do it.
She did it, according to you, because she was drunk.
Yeah.
So you don't have to understand what happened. According to what the menu of alcohol that she imbibed during the course of that evening, she didn't know whether she was in the back of your car or in the Concorde. So how much did this window cost you?
$206, and here's the receipt right here.
All right, Aggie, let's hear your end of it.
Well, Your Honor, just to put it blatantly, he did not see me do it. She did not see me do it. They did not hear me kick the window open. As far as I'm concerned, when the window shattered inside of the car, like he said, when you kick out a window, where does the glass go? It goes outside. There was bits of pieces
Let's start out with the hurricane.
Sure. Not a problem.
How old are you?
21. At least I was the only one that was 21 drinking.
Yes, I didn't know.
21. You know how stupid women look when they get drunk?
Sure.
Do you have any idea of how... Who are you?
I'm her mother.
Well, I'm sure your mother has told you. If she hasn't, she should have. You know, there's nothing more disgusting than a sloppy woman drunk. Sometimes I think sloppier than a man, but maybe that's just because I'm a woman. And if you're 21 years old, and you have therefore a license to drink, doesn't mean you have to make a fool of yourself. Now, you were pretty sick. I read your papers. I mean, you felt pretty uncomfortable that evening after you had had so much to drink. Why did you drink until you felt sick?
Why?
Why?
We were all drinking.
I didn't ask a... Listen, I don't care about them.
Okay.
Why did you drink?
Why did I drink?
Until you got...
I didn't get sick.
Lotto.
I didn't get sick. I did not get sick. We were drinking through the whole... We started drinking earlier when we went to Patty's house. We had a shot of E&J. Then we proceeded to go to another party.
I was not at Patty's house.
And then, well, no, you weren't there, but we drove to your house. And then we went to another
You
party.
weren't
Now
even
sit
at
here
my
and
house.
tell me there are so many people there.
I did not feel too well at the time. That's what you wrote in your answer.
That's right. I didn't feel well, but that doesn't mean that I was to the point where I would kick out somebody's window, causing no scrapes or anything on my leg.
All right.
There was no cause for me to do that. I tried to open the window, but there was no way I could open it because this window was off track in the first place.
It was not off track. Yeah.
I had my legs propped up.
Next
to the window. Next to the window. So I could be more comfortable. The next thing I recall is glass shattering, flying inside the car. Let me see the bill. Were you there when your daughter got home?
Yes, I was. Yes, I was.
Now step up here. Tell me your name.
Danuta.
Does your daughter come home intoxicated often?
No.
But this isn't the first time.
Not first.
Judge Judy will continue in a moment.
You know, when you're 21 years old, you're dumb and you do things that are stupid with alcohol. I don't know why people do that when they're young.
And later today,
You seem like a nice person. How a nice person can keep tasting their own foot, I'll never understand.
real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Robert Campbell claims his former friend Augie Nalepsky was highly intoxicated when she broke the window in his van and wants her to pay for it. Augie denies breaking the window.
Aggie, you're going to do what you want to do. You know, when you're 21 years old, you're dumb and you do things that are stupid with alcohol. I don't know why people do that when they're young. But I'm going to tell you this. Aside from looking terrible when you're 21 years old or when you're 20 years old or when you're 51 years old and you've had too much to drink, you were lucky this time that all you caused was a little damage to his car. I'm not going to play Sherlock Holmes. You're in that car. You're in the back of the car. You got your legs propped up against the glass. You're drunk. The window shatters. I don't need proof beyond a reasonable doubt that you're the one who caused it. All I need here is some evidence more than not that you caused the damage to the car. And I find that you did. So you owe him $206. Judgment for the plaintiff. That's all.
Thank you.
All right, it's our excuse. You may step out.
No problem.
You got the back row to your right.
Em lại tiếp tục quay trở lại với các bác trong cái chiếc bếp mà Paloma hôm nay nha các bác nhé. Mẫu này thì em ký hiệu là 2701. 2701 là mã số của bếp, mã số em ký hiệu nha các bác ơi. Đấy, đây là một chiếc bếp Nhật bãi này, dòng mà đây là một chiếc bếp Nhật bãi, chiếc bếp Nhật đã qua sử dụng rồi. Tức là nó không phải là hàng Nhật mới đâu, mà nó là hàng Nhật mà người ta đã sử dụng rồi. Sau đó thì về các em có vệ sinh sạch sẽ lại, có mông má lại và sử dụng các bác nhé. Có một cái ưu điểm đó là mặc dù là hàng bãi, nhưng mà nhà em không có hàng gọi là quá kém chất lượng nhé. Các người Nhật họ có một cái thói quen đó là họ chỉ dùng đồ trong một cái thời gian nhất định thôi. Sau cái thời gian đó thì họ sẽ không dùng nữa. Cho nên là những cái chiếc bếp này cũng tương tự như vậy. Mặc dù là hàng bãi đấy nhưng mà chất lượng đang còn mới, khoảng tầm 80 đến 85% các bác nhé. 80 đến 85%. Chiếc bếp này cũng thế, độ mới của nó là 80 đến 85%. Ưu điểm lớn nhất của cái dòng bếp Nhật đó là sẽ có cái cảm biến chạm vào đít nồi như thế này. Thì cái chiếc bếp này, chức năng của chiếc bếp này chỉ có chức năng là chống cháy nồi và chống rò rỉ ga, nhờ có cái tim cảm biến chạm vào đít nồi như thế này các bác nhé. Đo nhiệt độ nồi, khi mà nhiệt độ nồi lên một cái mức nhiệt độ nhất định thì bếp sẽ tự động tắt lửa và khóa ga. Đây là tim cảm biến của bếp. Chiếc bếp này thì sở hữu kiềng inox các bác nha. Với cái kiềng inox này thì là nhà em cắt lại này các bác này. Dòng này là nhà em tự cắt lại và cắt thì nó so với cái kiềng Nhật zin thì nó sẽ không đẹp như kiềng Nhật zin. Nhưng mà cái dùng cái dòng inox này thì các bác thấy rằng là nó rất là bền, là cực kỳ bền luôn nha các bác nha. Cách sử dụng của chiếc bếp này là nút nhấn. Đây, các bác chỉ cần sử dụng nó đơn giản như thế này thôi. Nhấn vào một cái là bếp bật công tắc, bật bếp thôi. Có một lưu ý là đối với bếp Nhật thì chúng ta bật một bếp nhưng mà sẽ đánh lửa cả 3 bếp các bác nhé. Tuy nhiên là cái bếp nào mà chúng ta đóng piston ga thì cái đó mới lên lửa, còn không thì sẽ không cháy đâu, không lên lửa nhé. Các bác có thể yên tâm, cũng đừng có phân vân là vì sao mà đánh lửa một bếp mà lại cả 3 bếp đều sáng. Khay nướng phía dưới này các bác này, khay nướng phía dưới đây là khay chắn dầu mỡ, thì cái khay này các bác bỏ một chút nước vào nhá. Đây, vỉ nướng chúng ta có thể tháo rời ra, đặt thực phẩm ở trên cái vỉ nướng này. Khay nướng một tầng nữa, ở trên chúng ta sẽ nướng được cá, được mực, được tôm, được cua nhé. Ở bên đây thì chúng ta sẽ điều chỉnh được nhiệt độ 160, 180, 200. Rồi có chế độ tự động nấu cơm, nấu cháo này các bác này. Có phím 3S nhé, phím 3S để rang đồ khô cho bếp không bị tắt lửa này. Dòng này là dòng mặt sơn tĩnh điện, nhưng mà các bác chỉ có lấy dao các bác rạch ra thì nó mới hỏng mặt thôi, chứ còn mình nấu nướng thông thường thì nó không hỏng nha các bác, không hỏng được đâu. Đấy, một chiếc bếp bãi nhưng mà độ mới còn cao này, các bác có thể quan sát thành vách này, mặt phía trước này, mặt phía sau này các bác này. Nhà em đã làm rất là cẩn thận rồi. Đấy, mẫu này thì đời 2012 các bác nhé, tháng 12 năm 2012. Đời bếp cũng không cao nhưng mà về chất lượng rất là tuyệt vời. Đấy, mẫu này em bán 2.200.000 đồng. Bác nào mà cảm thấy phù hợp với cái nhu cầu sử dụng của gia đình mình thì kết nối Zalo với em, số Zalo là 0327 238 868 các bác nha.